Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Simsport Racing channel, and welcome to round number 3 of this 7th season of the Simsport Racing GT3 Championship. We are in the Emilia-Romagna region. We're not at Imola this time. We're at the Marco Simoncelli Misano World Circuit. 2.597 miles this Grand Prix circuit. 16 turns in total. It might well be a fairly flat circuit, but it's not going to be short of action, and it will not be a flat race whatsoever. Robbie Stapleford took the first 2 wins with relative comfort, and if you caught with us a couple of weeks ago back at the last race, then you'll know that he's rather fond of this circuit as well. So will we see a third win in a row for the reigning champion and championship leader Robbie Stapleford, or will we see one of his many title challenges get in his way and put a cat amongst the pigeons? My name is David Wressell, and I'm delighted to be commentating on this race this evening, and I'm very pleased to be joined by none other than my esteemed commentary colleague, Chris Buxton, who is feeling better after some stuff that's happened in the recent past. Chris, lovely to have you back again. Should be a good one tonight.
Oh yes, looking forward to this, but then that's a broken record statement from me, because I look forward to pretty much anything that involves sim racing. Anyone that's seen me commentate will know that very well. Yes, here we are at Misano. So we had Paul Ricard last time out, where cars 1 and 2 finished in those aforementioned positions, and even with a final 15-minute drive-through penalty for Robbie Stapleford was still not enough to be dethroned from the top spot. So let's have a look at how the championship currently stands. As mentioned, there it is, Robbie Stapleford in the McLaren in the Sancho Simsport car, running away with the top honours at the moment. Dean Riley doing what he can in his way, but look at that, 38 down to 31 points, second to 6th in such a hot contest. That is going to be very much looking forward to seeing.
Absolutely, Chris, you've hit the nail on the head there. And like I say, people who you wouldn't necessarily have expected to be up there potentially, they've just kind of kept their noses out of trouble. Regan Mitchell being one of those, Adam Masalovic, of course, having a good run out a couple of weeks ago, as well as Sancho Simsport in terms of the team's championship, top of the leaderboard. However, as you can see there, only 5 points collected by Robbie's teammate Milos Stamenkovic, so I'm sure he'll be looking for a better race this evening. Pulse JR Simsport very close behind him. They sit in one of the other McLaren 720 teams. Simsport Racing Apex, that's Regan Mitchell and Kieran Vidago in 3rd place. Simsport Golf Racing of Rich Smith and Dean Riley in 4th. Simada Racing, that's Adam Masalovic and Simon Wilkes. Simsport Racing, which is Dave Hedges and Yannick Muller. SRBR, Bloodline Racing, Pulse HD Simsport, and Beaver Grease AMG. Ironically, Chris, running in a Bentley this season, which is doing my OCD no favours whatsoever.
And still, Beaver Grease still makes me smile. It did every time we saw it, and it still continues to do so. But absolutely. Yeah, let's have a look at how this track looks from a spectator standpoint, and such an amazing circuit.
Absolutely, of course, named after the unfortunate fatality of Marco Simoncelli at the Sepang International Circuit 9 years ago now. It's crazy to believe, but yeah, 2.597 mile circuit. Like I said, Chris, it's a bit of a flat one, but as I said before, we're not going to see any flats in the race this evening, and it's one of those where there's quite a few overtaking areas, and you've got the first couple of corners you see going into sector 1 there, you've got obviously into sector 2, you've got the heavy braking zones, and then you've got that big kind of banked back straight as they go down towards the final sector, which is really going to be a test of if you can get the exit onto that straight correctly, you're really going to have a chance towards the back end of the lap as well. And what we'll do is we'll see what it looks like real time. We're going to head on to the Grid Finder hot lap here, which is done on this occasion, Chris, by none other than Rich Smith. So Robbie Stapleford this time. Rich Smith's taken the reins, and we'll run through that now. See, going into the first couple of corners, very Ente del Parco, dropping down through the gears. You see sliding the car around. It's on this helmet cam. This time, so you can really see the G-forces getting up through the gears up towards 4th here as he goes into Curva del Rio. And again, a lot of this is really just about trying to maximise the exit speed, getting in there nice and tight onto there. You want to be going flat as possible. You can see it takes a lot of curb, and this is one of those ones you want to hit as much curb on the inside. You've got those giant sausage curbs on the outside as they head down towards Curva Quercia. Potentially a chance for some overtaking. It is one of those corners where you can see people take a couple of different lines. You see Rich going for the tight inside line, but I'm sure we'll see a couple of those, especially as we head through the first couple of tours around the circuit this evening. heading into Curve of Tremonto. And this, Chris, is where you really need to get that exit right, isn't it? You've got such a long straight now, and going into arguably another overtaking spot further way down the track.
Absolutely, but what this track doesn't have a lot of is really long straight into very heavy braking zones. It's lots and lots of kind of burst acceleration, minus a few areas. We've probably gone through the longest stint on the accelerator pedal they're going to be going through. And again, the slide is very obvious there as we're watching the coming through Curva del Carro. Now, there will be several times where you'll see people turning right into a left-hander and such to catch the slide, and it really is the best way of rotating these cars because it's so twisty as we're going to head into qualifying after this hot lap. So that's what the circuit looks like from the driver's perspective as we jump down to the we commented on this livery last time, didn't we? The Porsche Simsports Ferrari of Johnny Seville, who who was he scrapping with lap on lap on lap? I had it in my head and it's gone.
I think it was on camera now. There
it is. It was Sasalovich.
It was if he wasn't there. Yeah, he was well in the wars.
It was Sasalovich I was thinking of anyway, and well spotted there and well remembered from our cameraman Steve Smash It Proudly, as we nicknamed you last time out. Long may that stick. But that was a wonderful battle, wasn't it? With Sasalovich and Seville in particular, just was sixth, if I recall. They were fighting for, whilst the top honours were, you can't even say they were fought for, because I say even with the drive-through penalty in the last stages of the race, it still didn't turn the top result round.
Yeah, we were thinking it would be a little bit closer when that happened, weren't we, Chris? And then unfortunately, you see Robbie Stapleford just seemed to have such a gap behind him, and whatever the case, it's been and gone. It was a good race nonetheless, and the good thing about this championship, of course, we've mentioned it a number of times already, and we'll mention it again, I'm sure, countless amounts of times this evening, is that the competitive nature of all of these drivers is so high that even if that kind of thing does happen, we still know we're going to get fantastic battling up and down the field. Now, one thing you'll see as we're riding alongside Dave Hedges in the 88 Simsport Racing machines, we've got a new little graphic just in the bottom right-hand corner there, which breaks down the sector times and whether he's setting a yellow, green or purple sector as he goes through there. Obviously, purple means it's the fastest of anyone, green means it's the personal best for the driver we're watching, yellow is slightly slower than the personal best he's already set, and that is courtesy of ACC TV, which is something that we're using this evening. I know that Steve's very proud and very happy to show these sorts of things and always approves the quality of the broadcast, no doubt. And at the moment, looking around, Chris, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm not seeing a number one car kicking around the standings at the moment. We have talked about this before the broadcast went live, didn't we? He doesn't tend to put a practice time in for Stapleford before he goes on to the qualifying session. So we really, I wouldn't call it sandbagging. He's just not telling anyone what he's doing, is he?
Oh, Giro Vidago, you're pushing a tad hard there, sir. I thought he was going a bit hot going into Curve Misano, which is the final turn. You know, as the camera cut to Kieran, as he came out of that penultimate turn, he was already touching the grass, which would have then removed some of his braking efficiency. He just ended up bouncing way too wide coming through that final turn. Speaking of car number one, he has decided to put in a time. It's a 33.774, matched to the thousandths of a second to Kira Vidago. Very nicely done. That works for the OCD amongst us. But that puts him in fifth position. But yeah, exactly as you say. You know full well that he's going to be holding something in tow. And something else I've just noticed as well. Not only has Robbie Stapleford managed to match Kieran Vidago's time to the thousandths of a second, he did the same in Sector 1. That's matched to the start. I've never seen that before. I've seen times matched to the thousandths before in qualifying. I've never seen a sector time matched between the same two cars. That's impressive.
That is very impressive indeed, especially considering one's in a Ferrari and one's in a McLaren. They're two very different beasts, of course. And we can see someone else who's driving the Ferrari at this moment in time is Sam Pearce. She had a good first race out last time. Of course, wasn't the most eventful for her, barring the fact that there was quite a bit of traffic to worry about. But I'm sure the speed will be coming. I'm sure she's been getting plenty of practice in. She's sitting P28 at the moment. There's a 32 car field this evening, which is quite a large one. And it's going to be interesting, Chris, because obviously that'll be 32 cars. It's only a 2.5 mile circuit. 1 minute 32s I would expect are going to be the top times when the qualifying finishes in just over 9 minutes time. It's not the longest of circuits, and 32 cars is quite a few to fit into this, so it's going to be an interesting one in getting a qualifying lap in as well, especially given the amount of people and the track temperature at 39 degrees is just quite remarkable, considering we've been a little bit cooler in the last few races. It's really shot up for this one, so it's going to be interesting to see how everyone's going to fare as Sam comes across the line. Does improve, does manage to go just ahead of Martin Delgado up into P28.
Gorgeous Sancho livery as sported by the number 1 car. He's even feeling the need to warm his tyres, despite the fact that the track is pretty warm and gets out of the way. Was that the Simsport Audi that just came?
I think that was Dave Hedges, who's just gone behind him. It was a very close one, no call from the engineer in the ear of Mr. Stapleford there. As he goes on to a hot lap, you see him cranking up the gears, going into 5th just before he hits that braking zone. He's got a Ferrari behind him. Not quite sure who that is on track just behind him. It might be Monty Wilson or Tom Smith, I believe, who again, Chris, I've just noticed, have set identical lap times as well. 17th place. There's a lot of this happening. It's 2.5 miles, but we can still see people driving at exactly the same speed, which is exactly what I'd see.
But you raise a good point, because Misano is a shorter circuit. I mean, again, take Paul Ricard last time out as a primary example. You've got quite a lot of space for these cars to spread out, and I don't think we had 32 last time. We still had quite a few, but I don't think it was quite as many, as Kieran Vidago has just taken the 3rd place spot with a 33.486. Now, what this, with the tighter track conditions is not only going to make qualifying very, very tight, it means that the leaders, after probably about 20 minutes or so, are going to be facing an almost constant stream of back markers. Now, again, in previous races, Ricard and Silverstone to a lesser degree, it's not going to be quite as hectic for the leaders. The back markers are more spread out. They're not going to have that luxury, not unless we lose a lot of them, which of course we don't want to happen. We did lose a few last time out, but that's racing, whether it's virtual or not. No one ever, very few races ever sees everybody come over the line. Let's see what Mr. Stapleford gets on the board, shall we? What's he going to do? It's 3rd. It's a 33.474 for the number 1 McLaren.
Time to gain in the final sector there. So he went yellow in that one, but was purple in the middle sector. So he's managed to split 2 of the Ferraris. It's Ferrari 1, 2, and 4 and 5 at the moment, with McLeod sitting in 5th. I've got to apologise and not call him Sebastian like I did last time, because that made him that was very amusing for him. So I'm going to make sure I won't do the same thing again this evening. But yeah, as we're seeing, quite a few people in the chat this evening. Love to see some familiar names. We've got Alan Walker, who's talking about the fact that he's agreeing with me there. He lost a lot of the time in Sector 3 there. We've got Gene Pinchbeck supporting Pinchy as always, which is lovely to see. We've got Mark Raddenbury, who's looking forward to seeing all of the positive perception liveried cars, of which I know there's a few. So it's looking forward to seeing how these get on, and I know one of them, who he's keeping a keen eye on, is Jonathan Seville, who's sitting at top of the charming chart. That was close. 0.06 of a second behind his Dean Riley there. He set a purple final sector there, I think we saw, Chris, and quicker in the first 2. So there is still some pace to be found here as we go into the final 5 minutes of this session.
Our lead qualifying Aston Martin at the moment, Rich Smith in the... I'm sorry, that is one of my favourite liveries. This is something we spoke about as well. Oi! The Hot Wheels Bentley almost causing an incident there. My goodness, that looked really close from our perspective, but it was still an improvement from Rich as he does some lawn mowing on the exit of that particular lap. Jumps up to 7th position with a 33.642. Oh, there it is. There it is, a 32.937. Mr. Stapleford had decided to stop playing with his food and get on with it. 0.3 of a second. Struth alive. And that is pretty much all in Sector 1 over former pole sitter Johnny Seville. 0.3 of a second almost entirely in Sector 1. It's about 900 or so in Sector 2. That was 9,000 slower in Sector 3. So, my goodness, he's clearly got a trick up his sleeve for that first sector.
Absolutely, it seems to have got that McLaren dialed in, as he tends to do. Rasmus Christensen, you see going full beans through the final couple of corners into Curva del Carro, slows it right down as Regan Mitchell crosses the line. He goes up into 8th place, and yeah, we're seeing some comments that Aaron Walker did call that 32 lap. He absolutely did, because I saw that come through just before that lap came up on the board. So Aaron Walker definitely called that one. But I will come back and say that I called there be a 32 in his qualifying session. Like 10 minutes. So I'm going to take the points for that one myself. Rasmus Christensen crosses the line. He doesn't improve. He's a few seconds off there, so maybe lost a bit of time. He did look a bit slow as he went through the final couple of corners. Dave Hedges, amazingly, Chris is in 13th, but a second off. You've got to bear in mind, though, he'd be 7/10 off if we didn't have Robbie Stapleford on the grid. So it's something to consider within that mind. But I'm sure Dave will be wanting to gain a little bit more time as he goes down the back straight. I'm sure he will. And if he does, he's only got to gain a 10th or so, and he goes up into the top 10. So he's got a fair couple of positions on the grid to gain for not much time on the circuit.
That's the nature, isn't it, of the shorter tracks, is that there's potentially more positions to gain per 10th of improvement you find. But again, the downside of that is those 10ths are really, really hard to find. You know, it's easy to find a 10th or two in a Nordschleife in a 10-minute lap, but well, in my case, a 20-minute lap, because I'm terrible at Nordschleife. But when you're already looking at 133s, 132s. Finding those few 10ths, although he's done exactly that. That's 3 10ths improvement. And did you not say he was going to find 3 10ths or so? Look at that. Sees himself in 9th position with a 33.708. Now you can look at the tower and you can see just how many people are so close. How many people are 7 tenths apart. There's just 4 drivers. It's not an ideal way, Regan Mitchell, of doing it, although that's 4th position for the 69 Ferrari, 33.396. Careful, Dave Hedges. Yeah. I know you just set a lap time as we now switch to one of our Porsches. That's our lead qualifying Porsche on the map. I think there's only a couple of them. Yes, there's only a couple of Porsches in the field. That's the 512 Apex Predators Porsche. Has just been knocked down to 12th because I think that was Yannick Müller that has jumped up a few positions. I actually slightly missed who it was. Is there an improvement from the 512 Porsche? No, slightly slower. But again, you can see on the graphic at the bottom there, he was only about 800th slower from his previous lap time. So again, very consistent laps, but not an improvement this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. It did look as though he did kind of lose the front end into a couple of those final corners in the last sector, so I wonder if that's where he lost a bit of time. Tom Smith in the Bloodline Racing team, the number 89 Ferrari, he was the one who was, I believe, on an exactly identical lap with Monty Wilson a few minutes ago. He's now dropped a couple of tenths back. He's sitting in P19. Going down the back straight, he's got a couple of cars in front of him, so if you're looking for a nice tow as he goes through Curvone, it's one of those corners where it just doesn't feel like you can do it flat, but you can hard on the anchors, hit as much curve as you can. Look how aggressive he is there. He's hit that as well as you possibly can. He goes into Curva del Carro. Just heard, quick shout out for Miles Dixon. He has travelled all the way from Bolton down to Brighton, which is, I'd definitely go that way. I probably wouldn't go the opposite way. But he's certainly he's fair play to him, because he has managed to come down and get involved in the racing this evening. So fantastic work from him as he goes very slidey. And I mean, is he a little bit tired maybe? I don't know what happened there, but that was a bit squirmy through the final corner, wasn't it there, Chris?
That was a very lively tail coming through Curva Misano. But yeah, fair play. That's a fair few miles for Miles. I wasn't trying to make that. Wasn't trying to make that pun, but there it was anyway.
Absolutely, you've got to love a pun here and there, unintentional or intentional. It's got to be done. See Mark Neuterling's in that Simsport Positive Perception livery car, the Hot Wheels car. I know I've been told it's not the Hot Wheels car, but I'm running with it anyway.
Yeah, I'll go with
what someone told me it was. He's in the Bentley. He loves that Bentley, does Mark, and he knows. We've said it, and again, we've said it many times before. He knows how to make that thing so wide. It's unbelievable. He's an absolute nightmare to get past. I speak from experience. Difficulty for Mark though. No one ahead of him. So the only cars ahead of him at the moment, Sebastian Tonlera, Tom Smith, Monty Wilson, are still on a lap. As we see, the timer hit 0. So this is everybody's last lap. He's got 3 tenths to gain on Gilbert ahead of him, so he's got a bit of a chunk of time to gain, but he is still sticking into the lap. So that suggests to me, there we go, Mark Raddenberry in the chat shouting, it's a hot rod, there you go. It's the hot rod livery Bentley. I'm never going to forget that now. He must be improving because he's still going. He's going through the final couple of corners at the moment. Comes into curve Misano. It's a difficult corner to get right. He does just about avoid the sausage curves because they will offset you and they will throw you off any which way they possibly want. He does improve, doesn't manage to go up a position. So, class of the field, Chris, Robbie Stapleford 3/10 ahead on pole position for this evening's race. We said he might be quick. I don't think anyone expected him to be quite that quick.
Yeah, wow. What can you say about that? That is a storming gap. Yeah, okay, you can expect the number one to be at the front, but by that kind of margin, that is quite something. And like I say, that's all in Sector 1. He clearly knows something about that first sector that it looks like going down the field that no one has managed to match. Generally, it's a 23.3, 23.4. There's a 23.1 for that first sector, which is Regan Mitchell, but Mr. Stapleford was a 23.0 for Sector 1 alone. Sector 2 and 3 is in the ballpark of everybody else, but it's that first sector where that McLaren is just dancing at the moment. But we will see. It's of course, it's a 90-minute race. Anything can go fore and aft. We don't know how the race is going to go. Of course, it's all well and good being quick over a single lap. We know Mr. Stapleford can do, of course, the full distance, having won both rounds we've seen so far. But a big shout out to Jonathan Seville as well. Great effort there to be on row 1 with the mighty McLaren, considering that he was battling for 6th pretty much all race long at Paul Ricard. So great effort there. Dean Riley and Regan Mitchell on row 2. Adam Salovic and Kieran Vidago row 3. Again, bearing in mind that Vidago and Stapleford were matched lap for lap a little while ago. Stuart McLeod and Yannick Muller take on, I beg your pardon, I've got that slightly wrong. The Stuart McLeod and Rich Smith, take on row 4. And then it's Yannick Muller and Milos, I struggle again, Stamenkovic take on row 5. Then it is Dave Hedges and Zlatu Pavlovic in row 6. Rasmus Christensen and Simon Wilkes on row 7. Chris Pinchbeck and Marcus Hagel in row 8. I did wonder where Pinky Pinchbeck was, and there he is on in 15th position. Row 9 is Monty Wilson and Tom Smith. I've done it again. I can't believe I'm doing this. Row 9 is Monty Wilson and Miles Dixon. Then it is row 10, Tom Smith and Sebastian. How do you say that? De Tolanera. My apologies. Then is row 11, which is Ash Knight and James Gilbert. Row 12 is Mark Neuterlings and Mantis Amalis. Row 13, Rob Jackson and Stein Paspon. Then row 14 is Ashley Copeland and Arnes Morkis. Row 15 is Steve Parker and Martin Degala. And at the tail end of the field is Sam Pearce and Simon Bartlett.
Yeah, Simon Bartlett, who's a new joiner to the series. I think he actually joined the season yesterday, if not today.
Oh,
so
wow.
A late entry, we'll call it a wild card for this evening, and I'm sure we'll let him back for another one in a couple of weeks' time. Before we head into this race, quick reminder as to where we're going to be heading to after this. We'll catch up on this again towards the back end of the evening as well. But whilst we're waiting for these cars to go out and start their formation lap, we'll head to Snetterton in a couple of weeks' time. So it's, as we mentioned before, it's a British doubleheader. Snetterton is then followed by Donington Park, and then we finish in the House of the Rising Sun with Suzuka at the end of the season, which is going to be one that I'm very much looking forward to. You can see the beautiful graphic that we're seeing at the moment. You can see Silverstone was round 1, of course. We then headed down to the French coast and we went to Paul Ricard, which was a couple of weeks ago. Actually, this evening we've hopped, as you can see, just across west a little bit, east rather.
East.
Get your compass right. Over to Misano and then back into the UK for that double header, like we say, 2 fortnightly races we host here in the GT3 Championship with Simsport Racing International. And you can see there a very, very big flyaway down towards Suzuka to finish things off. And I get Chris, I've said this, I think I've said this every race so far, but I can't stress it enough. That's the kind of race that you need to finish a championship with, isn't it? Suzuka's just one of those races. They're one of those tracks that feels like it has to host a season finale, doesn't it?
I can't deny that. It's such an iconic circuit that has seen championships and even, not even top step of championships, just fights in some way, shape or form resolved at that particular venue. It is such an amazing circuit. Biased? Yes. Am I sorry for it? No. It's an amazing circuit. But, Snetterton and Donington are, British classics in themselves. My three favourite circuits are indeed Silverstone, Snetterton and Donington. Am I biased? Yes. Again, I am, and I'm not sorry for it. Snetterton's actually a place I have commentated at, so I will always love Snetterton for that. And Donington and Silverstone I have been to in the flesh, so I very much love those particular circuits. But that aside, we continue our European or our non-British European leg. We're here at Misano, 35 more seconds before we get the rolling start underway. Will Mr. Stapleford run off into the sunset? He's certainly gone about the right way about it so far, but anything can happen in the next hour and a half.
Absolutely. Jonathan Seville is going to be one of those people who is going to be very keen, I would imagine, to try and get Robbie off the line. Of course, we saw how close Dean Riley was to getting him off the line in Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago. Whether Jonathan could do the same thing again will remain to be seen. The one thing Jonathan will be hoping not to do is to fall back a little bit like he did in the first stint of the race a couple of weeks ago, Paul Ricard, because if you may remember, Chris, he did kind of fall back a little bit. And I remember speaking to him afterwards, and he did say that the car the setup on the Ferrari he was using was very difficult to control. And I think Rasmus Christensen, who finished third in the end, did mention that it felt a lot better for him than it did for Johnny. So hopefully he won't have a repeat of that this time. As we see, the number one car in that, as we said it again, that beautifully painted Zancho Simsport livery car heads the field away. Johnny Seville, Dean Riley and Regan Mitchell, your top four. 6 of the... Get your maths right, David. 5 of the top 10 are Ferraris. Of course, it's an Italian track, so Ferraris are naturally going to be good in this area of the world, and that's definitely the case today. And big shout out to Stuart McLeod. To be fair, he's always been in and around, but getting into the top 10 is no mean feat with the quality of field we've got this evening as well. So good shout for him. Not in the not fast, just furious car, which is another one of those team names, Chris, that does tend to make us chuckle, isn't it?
There's a few of them out there, isn't there? That's we smile, and we hope you lovely people watching along enjoy it as much as we do. So we switch to Rich Smith and that very distinctive Golf flavoured. It says Golf McLaren. It's actually an Aston. So that's apologies for the OCD. And there's Dave Hedges' Audi we saw in the background of the shot. Continue to work our way through the field. We will be reforming the 2x2 grid fairly soon. We're at Tramonto at the moment. Tramonto, rather, get the pronunciation right. So we're on the back part of the circuit. So we'll be forming the 2x2 in a few corners' time, and then it is down to the green light and for Mr. Stapleford to floor it to signify the beginning of this intense race. Johnny Seville is really determined to push him and get on with it now, isn't he? Goodness me, almost leaving the rest of the field behind. Also, as a reminder, on the tower you can see the orange number 1 that is next to everybody's car numbers. That signifies that there is a mandatory pit stop to serve in this race. So when that number 1 has disappeared and that panel turns green, it means that car has served its mandatory stop, and they are then continue to race until the end, until the checkered flag falls. So that will shake up the order a bit. It didn't make an awful lot of a difference to the top steps last time out, but Mr. Stapleford even teased us with the drive-through, like we mentioned earlier, towards the end. And Johnny Seville's like, well, if you're not going to have it, I'll have the pole then. Here we go.
So it looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
2x2 line being formed. We'll be getting the race underway very, very shortly.
Absolutely. Steve Parker, one mention to him. He's starting from the pit lane for some reason. I'm not entirely sure what would have caused that. Potentially wasn't ready when the timer headed out, but Robbie Stapleford rounds us through Curve of Misano to finish off this formation. That will be going green any moment now. 90 minutes here at Misano in the Simsport Racing International GT3 Championship, season number 7, round number 3, and we are underway. Jonathan Seville gets a decent start, but it looks like Robbie Stapleford's going to cover off into the first corner. Dean Riley gets the inside line. Adam Misalovic has got Kieran Vidago for company. It's close between Seville and Robbie Stapleford there. It goes very deep. It looks to me in the background that everyone just seems to get through cleanly enough, but it's Robbie Stapleford who leads us in through the first couple of corners into Curva del Rio. It's Jonathan Seville, Dean Riley, Regan Mitchell and Adam Asalovic, your top five. We'll see the timing tower start to reset itself. As you can see, they're shifting through at the moment. Yannick Muller, Stuart McLeod, Dave Hedges and Simon Wilkes is your top 10. And it's a very clean start for everyone, Chris, and exactly what Robbie Stapleford would have wanted. What we've got to see now is whether Jonathan Seville and co can stay behind him and cling onto the coattails of that extremely quick McLaren. Oh, yeah. We can see there's a fallen McLaren in the form of the other Zancho Simsport car, which is Milos Stamenkovic. Hopefully we'll see what happened there. Not the start his teammate would have wanted, but the reigning champion and championship leader is off to the perfect start.
That he is. And oh no, unlike Sam Pearce, who finds himself with a wall. For Redline Zach Racing, the number 78 Ferrari has had trouble already. My goodness me. Misano is biting, and we haven't even done a lap just yet. But yeah, Johnny Seville was a little bit too determined to make the move down into Curva del Rio, which really compromised his exit. And you can see that has given Stapleford all he needs to build up almost a second by the time the lap has ended. Now, is Jonathan Seville going to be able to close that one back down? He's doing a pretty good job of trying to hang on to the back of the Sancho number one. But he needs to be a bit more sensible than that. Yeah, I get that. It's very tempting to push and try and challenge the champion so early on. He has gained a couple of tenths in that last sector, so could well be that Jonathan Seville has got the necessary setup and pace to challenge that McLaren. There is Dean Riley in the number 2 McLaren, chasing off after Jonathan Seville. It does look like everyone else has managed to survive pretty okay. There's a long way to go. There is the Pulse Simsports lead car, the number 97 at the moment, because they are allowed to use that AstroTurf on the outside. It's fine if it's AstroTurf. When it gets green and fuzzy, that becomes a problem for them. Oh, Yannick Muller in an almighty great scrap there. 4 cars all side by side. There's Asanovic losing out. That's Kieran Vidago in the 24 Ferrari that's made his way past the treble 1 Ferrari, the Simada Racing. Brightly coloured Ferrari has lost that one. There's right behind him is the Aston Martin of that's Rich Smith in the 76 has also gained a position over Yannick Muller. Wow, lots of fighting going on further down. The leaders may not be scrapping, but the midfield certainly are. My goodness, that's close.
Jeez, that was very close indeed. Rich Smith nearly going at the back end of Adam Asalovic there, who's not had the best second lap this one. Like I say, lost the position to Kieran Vidago. As you can see, car on the inside, that's Stuart McLeod, and I think that's Simon Wilkes as well. I said this last time, and it's of no detriment to the way he races in these championships, but he seems to always get caught. But instant Dave Hedges takes off the other Sonata Racing drivers, other number 5. That is a shame. Robbie Stapleford, unsurprisingly, sets the fastest lap of the race, but that is unfortunate. Chris Pinchbeck has gained a few positions off the back of that. Monty Wilson up into the top 10, as is Rasmus Christensen, and that was unfortunate. Hopefully we'll see exactly what happened there. It just looked like a bit of a coming together, and then one of those where it looked like Simon was just coming back onto the racing line and Dave Hedges was there pretty much waiting for him, unfortunately. So it's been an incident-filled first couple of laps for the midfield. You can see a lot of cars, of course, but it's not necessarily to be expected, but not unexpected given the amount of cars we've got on the track this evening, because 32 in total. James Gilbert in the Pole Simsport Audi, he's trying to go for a move on his sister team, not teammate, sister team of Miles Dixon in the McLaren Pole Simsport car. And then there's Marcus Hagel, who's another one of the Pole Simsport drivers ahead of those as well. So it's Pulse 3 at the moment as he goes into Curva Tremonto as they get onto the back straight. That McLaren is quick in a straight line, and that Porsche of Zlatko Pavlovic is going to have to struggle to hold off all 3 of these behind him, because that Porsche, as we know, is not exactly the most rapid one, but he's doing a decent enough job of holding on to them at the moment. He's just sticking in front of them. He's just going for the move. Is Marcus Hagel? That's a bit too late. Fortunately, he backed out of it, but that could have been a very big incident were they not too careful. Fortunately, Chris, Hagel's decided to live another day, and Pavlovic has decided to survive for that moment for a couple more laps at least as well.
Well, unsurprising, new fastest lap by Robbie Stapleford. He's not got all the 3 purple sectors. Just as I say that, Robbie Seville, who, for a brief moment, Robbie Stapleford did have all 3 purple sectors to constitute the fastest lap, and that has just been taken by pretty much a tenth on the nose by Jonathan Seville. So it could well be the number one car's got some competition today. Well, that's going to be fantastic to see if that turns out to be the case. There is the number 24 of Akira Vidago. He's got a bit of breathing space fore and aft as he chases off after Isalovic. It's Adam Isalovic in the yellow car. You can see the bottom of the shot. There's Marcus Hagels. We just saw in that almighty great gaggle. He's in the 117 Pulse Sports McLaren. As he's got Miles Dixon and John Gilbert. Lots of black and pink going on in that particular arrangement. As that's Miles Dixon having a look on the inside. Can't quite commit to it. Not enough road to do that. He's really piling the pressure on. They may well share the name Pulse, but they are not under orders to avoid each other. Oh, now here we go. Robbie Stapleford has definitely got some competition in the form of Johnny Seville. There you can see the graphic for showing the sector times between himself and Stapleford. And the gap for Sector 1, he's only about 0.07 of a second between the two cars. Oh, and the Ferrari gets very fidgety coming out of the final turn. What does the laps look like this time around? 34.1 for Stapleford, 33.8 for Jonathan Seville. So if nothing else, he's gaining a bit of slipstream. Slipstream's not all that effective. It will still help a little bit here, but not as much as it would at the likes of Paul Ricard we saw last time around. But of course, the more these two fight, the more that's going to help Dean Riley and also fourth place Regan Mitchell close in on them as well. So Jonathan Seville really piling the pressure on. Brilliant to see, but at the moment it is still advantage Stapleford.
Absolutely. I think the main thing from Stapleford's perspective is he needs to get that first sector dialed in. We saw how quick he was compared to everyone else in qualifying there. You see Simon Bartlett, because we talked about him. First race for in the Simsport Racing International Community this evening. He's all over the back of Milos Stamenkovic, that is, in the sister Zancho Simsport McLaren. Dave Hedges just ahead of them, and that's Sebastian Tolinera in the Getwell Schumi machine in the 330 just behind him. But yeah, just going back to Seville and Stapleford. Seville looks... The Ferrari is quick round here, we know that. Everyone's mentioned it's quick. It's obviously quick in a straight line. It's arguably the quickest in a straight line of the cars available on the Assetto Corsa competition roster. And the McLaren is probably not too far off itself, but Jonathan Seville seems a lot quicker through the second two sectors of the lap. So Robbie's, if he can't get that first sector right, he's going to be under pressure, as he has been for the majority of this fifth lap. And you can see Johnny Seville, is going absolutely hell for leather. What's it going to be as he crosses the line? He's just gained a couple of thousandths of a second. And we'll see the differences over the last three laps. You can see those there. I mean, in fact, that's comparing Jonathan Seville and Jonathan Seville, so we know they're going to be pretty spot on. Hopefully we'll catch up for Robbie Stapleford.
It would be worrying if they weren't.
There you go, you can see it now. He's gaining time, Chris, on every single lap. It's anything between half a tenth to 3/10 the lap before, so you can only assume that was a little mistake from Robbie. But you can see he gains time in the first sector, he just loses it with the pace of that Ferrari in the second third of the lap. So it's not all going Robbie Stapleford's way, which is not what we expected. He was 3/10 quicker on qualifying, but he's not got it all his own way in the race, and this is going to prove very, very interesting when it comes from a strategy point of view as well.
And you're talking hundredths of a second difference. You're almost thousands of a second. Sector 1, 23.583 for Stapleford, 23.577 for Seville. That's a difference of, quick maths, 6 thousandths of a second between the two cars. That's all it is in Sector 1. Sector 2, a bit more towards Johnny's favour there. It's about, what's that? It's about 600ths rather. And they did it again. They matched Sector 3 to the thousandths of a second. So the pace is really, it's not vastly different, but it's allowing that that Ferrari rather, to stay on the back of that lead McLaren as we, well, there it is again. Now let's have a look at what they are. No, it's going to ebb and flow. Some laps Robbie's going to be a bit quicker. Some laps Jonathan's going to be a bit quicker. Let's see what it is this time. 3 thousandths of a second to the 97 Ferrari's favour. So now he's in a position where he's going to have to force the move. He could continue to gain the minuscule amount. He's less than 3/10 behind at the point they cross the line. The problem there is that if he gets too much closer, he's going to end up hitting the back of Robbie Stapleford. So he's going to have to force the move. And that's no mean feat to try and actually put a move on Robbie Stapleford. And then we'll get the opportunity to see how the McLaren then counters that. But look at the queue behind the Porsche of Pavlovich. That's absolutely unreal. Now there's a mistake there. Jonathan Seville, it's in the blink of an eye, he just suddenly lost about 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got a little bit too wiggly coming out of that one, out of the curve of Quercia there, and he's lost a little bit of time. He's still going to be in the slipstream, so he should still gain a bit of time back on there. But yeah, you did see there, before we switched back to this battle for the lead, and it's unsurprising we're going to focus quite a lot on this if it continues as it is. But yeah, there's a bit of a train or a bit of a bottleneck forming behind Zlatko Pavlovich, and I think that is really just to do with the lack of top speed that Porsche 911 has. It's not the quickest in a straight line. It goes all the way down from Pavlovich down to Mark Neuteland in 18th. You can see by the delta, roughly kind of the gaps between these guys. And you can see that Marcus Hagel's managed to escape the clutches of Pavlovich, and he's now gone a second up the road already. So you can see how much time there is if you can get past him. As you see Dean Riley there going very, very wide in the background, going to put himself under some pressure from Regan Mitchell. You can see, yeah, he's lost a few tenths on that last lap to Johnny Seville. So little bit of time lost compared to the Zancho Simsport car. Riley's managed to hold on to the position to Regan Mitchell, but these top four, it's almost like they're hot lapping at the moment, Chris. The pace behind them is absolutely relentless. They've gained 5 seconds on Adam Misano already, as James Gilbert shows his nose to the inside of Zlatko Pavlovich, but not enough to put off the Apex Predator Porsche in the 512 machine. But yeah, he's going wide there. It was very wide. James Gilbert gets a little bit sideways as he comes out of Curva del Rio. He can't make the move stick. And Miles Dix is all over the back of this, licking his lips. So you can see they're just bouncing across those sausage curves. Tom Smith nearly went off into stage left, and it was absolutely ridiculous what was going on there. Unbelievable stuff from these guys, and somehow they're as close as they are, and we still haven't had an incident, which is exactly what we like to see. Good racing, fast racing, but all importantly, Chris, fair racing as well.
Oh, completely. As we switch back to the lead battle, the number 97 still on the tail of the number 1. They really have left behind Dean Riley and Regan Mitchell. They could do with working together to try and catch the top 2, but even if they did, the pace of the top 2, even though they're that close, is just unreal. They're regularly in the 34s, high 33s. At this stage of the race, it's just absolutely fantastic. There is Yannick Müller, the 143 Simsport Racing Audi, in the midst of this train that is behind. I think there's a Salovitz there behind, isn't it? Yes, it is, the yellow Ferrari. All the Audi having a look at the Aston. That's Rich Smith in the Golf Racing Aston. Not an easy car to pass. Well, none of them are easy to pass because these drivers are pretty hot in the right conditions. Oh, look at that. That's Rasmus Christensen that's getting interested. The 27 Pulse Simsport Ferrari trying to make a move on the 143, or trying to show his nose at least. This is a track that is really about applying pressure. You're not going to see all that many big dive bomb moves, like I said, because there's not all that many kind of big heavy braking zones that go on in this particular circuit. That being said, that's not stopping these two really having a good go.
Look how close they are.
Yeah, and last time around, they once again matched the lap times to the thousands. Now I wonder whether Rich Stapleford, I'm now renaming him Robbie Stapleford, has made a mistake somewhere, because he's suddenly, and there you go, I wasn't making it, that's Robbie Stapleford to Robbie Stapleford again. So there you go. So last time out, there it is. You can see the grey marker on lap 8. They matched each other to the thousandths of a second, but it's very ebb and flow. 0.3 of a second. We knew that Johnny Seville made that mistake last time around, but it looks like the number 1 McLaren is really feeling the pressure, and they're just stretching their legs away from, as I said earlier, from Riley and Mitchell behind them. Let's see what the lap times are this time. 34.4, 34.3. So again, not massive differences, but it's enough that Jonathan Seville is just keeping the pressure on. And there's a few mistakes to be had, and that highlights what you were saying earlier, David, about the advantage that Robbie Stapleford has in that first sector. He's just giving himself that little bit of breathing space, swinging himself from the Ferrari, but we'll see Jonathan Seville on the wing of that McLaren by the time they're back round to the line again.
Absolutely, lost half a second in that first sector, which is quite a lot of time considering how close these guys have been so far. 2 drivers who are still very close as well is Stijn Passpont and Ash Knight. Stijn Passpont, the only driver who I have ever seen, and the only one in this season as well, just to compound that, in the Jaguar GT3, the Emil Frey one, in this beautiful Denso livery, the 444 car. Always likes to pick the slightly edgy car choice. I'm sure we'll see him in one of the writers at some point, which is the I think that's the subplot of Lamborghini, if I'm not mistaken. He does like to pick the ones that are slightly more difficult to handle the most. As we can see Simon Bartlett heading into the pits. You can see the P next to his name at the bottom of the timing tower. Hopefully that's a scheduled pit stop and he'll come back and be out on his way soon. And the train behind Adam Misalovic is continuing to run its course. No derailments as such far. Kieran Vidago following with Rich Smith behind him, Yannick Muller and Rasmus Christensen rounding out that one. And what you said earlier, Chris, is really kind of becoming true at the moment. It's really kind of wait for a mistake, because there's not necessarily a huge amount of places, especially in these quite big, bulky GT3 cars, to really kind of send one up the inside without having something happen as a result. But Rich Smith is looking to the inside of Kieran Vidago as they go into the Variante del Parco. Doesn't do it on this occasion again, just letting Kieran know he's there, and stays in seventh for another moment, or another lap at least. But will he make a move further down? Meanwhile, at the top, it is ebbing and flowing. Like you said, it's now back down to 8/10 between Seville and Stapleford. Regan Mitchell all over the back of Dean Riley in third and fourth respectively, and then it's these guys from fifth down to ninth, with Monty Wilson running out the top 10.
Great stuff so far. Yeah, John Seville lost half a second, as you mentioned earlier, on that last time around. There's Miles Dixon, one of the fellow Pulse Simsport Ferraris, with the 17th positioned Tom Smith right with him. Oh, no, that's getting tasty. The Porsche's finally being usurped by James Gilbert on the inside line. The 227 Audi should get that one done. And now
there's the door.
My goodness. And Pavlovich just, and only just, manages to fend off the advantages of Stuart McLeod that's right behind him. I think so. Is that the number 72 Ferrari? It is,
yeah. Wasn't close the door, was it, from James Gilbert? It was slam the door in his face, lock it, and never let it back in again. It seemed like it was quite an aggressive move. He had every right to do it. He was ahead of him coming out of the corner anyway, but it was quite a good aggressive move. As Stuart McLeod goes a little bit wide there. Miles Dixon, is he going to look to the inside? He is. That's going to give Tom Smith the chance to just close in behind as well. Pavlovich managed to stay on the back of James Gilbert for the time being. Miles Dixon doesn't look to... Oh no, he has made the move, sorry. The timing tower will reset itself in a minute. There's every sector on ACC, which is why it doesn't immediately update, but you can see there Miles Dixon is definitely ahead of Stuart McLeod, who, despite a very good qualifying session from the Ferrari driver, the number 72 car has unfortunately fallen down, as you can see. Go back to our fight towards the top. Chris Seville is looking to... he's not looking to, he is losing a bit of time to Robbie Stapleford. You can see a 34.7, 34.3. It's quicker on lap 9, but he's lost to the tune of nearly half a second on the last couple of laps. So he's got to try and get his head back in and try and gain some time back on him, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was advantage Stapleford last time around as well, only by half a tenth last time around. But that gap is now obviously substantially bigger than where it was, and that's just the cost of one simple mistake. But the problem is, if you lose your head a little bit, something I always talk about is the mental aspect, particularly of endurance racing. Anything that's not a sprint. Even in sprint racing, you need mental discipline, obviously, but it's more important in endurance racing. If you just lose that focus, if you lose that ability to just be able to reset from a mistake and get straight back on it, you're going to cost yourself a lot of time. I know, I speak from experience. As we see Stu. Oh no! That was
never going to work.
That's someone missing their braking point rather spectacularly. Who was that? Was that Tom Smith?
That was Tom Smith, yeah. Wow.
Oh dear. That was a missed braking point. Realised he'd gone in too hot, tried to dive for the apex and just locked the rear wheels and had no chance of slowing it down then. But the Bentley of Martin Eutlings is having a bit of fun now with the not fast, just furious 72 Ferrari. Great capitalising moment there for Mr. Neutelings as he's jumped up position here, as we now see Tom Smith's name plummet down the field. And he's in the pits as well, so we didn't see, but I suspect he's hit the wall as the Bentley's really gotten out of shape coming down towards Calva del Rio. And now getting... Is that the Jaguar? That's not the Jaguar behind him.
No, that
was the Porsche. I beg your pardon, that's Ash Knight. So yeah, that now with the other Porsche in the field, Ashley Knight looking to get involved in this particular fight. There goes McLeod. He's going for the outside manoeuvre, well covered off on the inside line from Neutening's out. Again, that Bentley just doesn't seem to want to behave itself. It's not an easy beast to control, is the big old Bentley. Again, there's not too many of them. Oh, wow, that's nearly slamming into the back of the 72 Ferrari, but on they go. Nonetheless, let's see this again, and there you go. That's where the rear wheel's locked for the Ferrari. Is he going to hit the wall?
Oh.
No, he just, lucky boy, he managed to get that one out of the wall, but he's gone into the pits nonetheless. Just a kind of underwear change needed. But out he goes again, and back on his merry way.
Yeah, it was a very close one. It was almost what I suppose, if you were to quote Fernando Alonso, sort of instant karma there. Whether he did outbrake himself, whether it was a shall I say, in inverted commas, a calculated move, it certainly didn't pay off. Unfortunately for Stuart McLeod, although he did get a little clout of Ferrari on his front end, he is still running and seems to still have some decent pace. And like I say, he's just trying to make his way around Mark Neutling's at the moment, that hot rod liveried Bentley. And Mark's doing exactly what Mark does. He's putting the car in the right area. We saw them coming into Curve Quercia a lot on the last lap, where Regan Mitchell and Riley are, as you can see on the camera at the moment. He went to the inside, but he didn't outbrake himself. He just held the line perfectly. So he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a very, very accomplished defensive driver, is Mark. So it's brilliant to see him putting his qualities to good use. Regan Mitchell, though, still not managing to find a way past this Simsport Racing McLaren of Dean Riley's. He's still stuck behind and sitting in fourth place. He's closer than he ever has been. Robbie Stapleford is pulling out a gap towards Jonathan Seville as well. He's now 1.1 seconds ahead, and it's five and a bit seconds back to these two, and that's another 5 seconds back to Adam Misanovic, who's managed to gap Kieran Vidago a small amount. As you see there, the race leader, championship leader, reigning champion. He's done the whole thing, pole position of every single race, fastest lap in every single race. And I believe, in fact, no, he doesn't have the fastest lap at the moment, does he, Chris? Because Jonathan Seville's got that one as it stands. Yannick Muller still sitting in 8th position, as you can see. He's got Rasmus Christensen behind him. Of course, Rasmus was on the podium last time out of Paul Ricard. Not quite the same benefit of, not quite the same performance had so far, but Yannick Muller's got a good run on Rich Swift. He's going to try around the outside into curve into the Parker. Sorry, he is switched to the inside. Oh, it's close, a little bit of contact. Shifts Rich a little bit wide. It's going to turn to the right, so Rich is going to have the inside again. He's got the inside into Curva del Rio, and Rasmus Christensen's going, right, I'll have a little piece of this action, please, boys and girls. Goes at the inside. Can he make the move? He can't. Somehow, we're still in the same order we were in Mexico. Incredible stuff from those three, and Monty Wilson has thought, you know what, boys, I'll get on the action as well. Goodness me.
Oh, that was a good catch from Rich Smith there, as we've got someone getting out of the way. That I'm assuming is Milos Stamenkovic, if I can say that one correctly. Oh, very much getting out of the way. Wow, sign Rich up to the cricket team. He caught that Aston just at the right time. There's a tiny impact on the left-hander between the Audi and the Aston, but it was enough to unsettle the tail of the car, and he just managed to catch it at the right time. We see Dave Hedges trying to work his way back through the field after an early pit stop, I believe. He's now trying to get past the 679, beg your pardon. That's Rob Jackson. It's easy. But he has fairly simple move there from Dave Hedges. I don't think Rob really fought that one too hard. You know who you're realistically in a fight with, and it's not going to serve you to try and fend off someone that is really considerably quicker than yourself. So fair play from Rob there. Didn't make it easy for him, but didn't fight unnecessarily hard. If we jump back to Monty Wilson in the 10th position, number 776, the Bloodline Ferrari, looking at the back of the very squabbling trio we were looking at before. Now, yeah, you could look to get involved, but at the moment he's just kind of either by design or by pace difference, just not getting involved just yet. There's Stuart McLeod still on the back of the Bentley with the Porsche right behind him. So Neuteling's leading a 3-car train. Ash Knight has yet to make his way through these two ahead of him. And that's the back marking going out of the way.
Steve Parker, I think. Well, sorry, Stuart McLeod goes at the inside. No. Again, that looked to me like always goes again. Mark Neuteling's going to the inside as they go onto the back straight. Is he going to push him out? He is, but Stuart's going to try and get the switch back. Mark Neuteling's goes bouncing across the sausage curve. That's not the run you want onto the back straight. Stuart's in exactly the right position he needs to be in here. He just needs to try and hold onto the brakes. Goodness me, Mark Neuteling, you should not be doing that, sir. That is very naughty indeed. You should be moving under braking like that. I'm sure he'll say that was always his plan. but that was a little bit naughty, I think, in my opinion. Of course, we are fully impartial, aren't we, Chris? But it seemed a little bit naughty for me. Miles Dixon is the next to try and make the move on Zlatko Pavlovic. You can see him going up the inside into her Curvone.
That's a little bit of grass.
Goodness me. Is he going to try and make the move into the heavy braking zone? He is. I mean, that's a very well measured move. Zlatko Pavlovic just seemed to drop to the outside there. I wonder if he was just going that, yeah, that's fair enough. You're going to come past me eventually. I'm not going to make us come to any blows or anything like that. Stuart McLeod still, Chris, behind Mark Neutling somehow. That was so close. It should have happened. It didn't. At this point, I'm sure Stuart's thinking, what have I got to do to get past this enormous boat that's in front of me at this moment in time?
Yeah, often referred to as the boat Lee, isn't it? The big old British mark. Yeah, it was a bit. Dave Hedges. That's the second time he's been in, I think.
No, I think he got caught up in an incident at the start.
Oh, he spun, didn't he? Yes.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. Yeah. So Dave serving his pit stop now. Yeah, it was a bit of a dangerous. Oh no! Simon Wilkes, the second of these Shimano Ferraris, facing the wrong way. Is coming out of Kevin Misano, and assumedly he's been a little bit too eager on the gas. It looks like Stuart McLeod's getting a bit frustrated. I would say he probably is quite furious with that defensive move from Martin Neutelings. And there you can argue that that's the line he normally takes, but he was so close. He really should have given the Ferrari a bit more room. It was fortunate that Stuart saw him coming and got on the brakes a bit earlier, or at least a bit harder than he probably had designed to do. But either way, it avoided an impact, and that tail of that Ferrari is getting very, very squiggly, and that's compromised his exit. And now the Porsche's going to come through Ash Knight and relieve him of the position. So yeah, it was a compromised exit there for Stuart. I think he's getting a bit too frustrated. So he's letting that. Oh no! Calm down, Stuart. Oh no, the Porsche's gone off. Now he's going to let.
Yeah, bit of a nudge there. No, good play from Stuart there. We did, like I say, Ash Knight was definitely past him. Looked like Stuart just didn't manage the braking zone effectively. Maybe didn't fully gather the difference in speed between the two, and just gave Ash Knight a little bit of a nudge. But fortunately, no harm, no foul. They've both carried on. They've dropped a little bit back from Mark Neutlings to the tune of a few seconds now. But fortunately, all managing to carry. This is what happened to Simon Wilkes. He's just coming through the final couple of corners, and like you said, Chris, going into Curve and Mazzani. It looks like he's gone very, very hot and heavy into that one. Just catches that sausage curve. There you go, into the wall. Thank you and good night. And that is one of those another one of the beautifully liveried Aston Martins. I think there's Ash Coupland in one of the other. I think it's the Golf Martini style livery behind him, just managing to get up in position as well. So not gone Simon's way this evening. Caught up in instance at the start, and on that one went off of his own accord, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where you could see he'd overcommitted. You could see he was too late on the brakes and gone in too hot. And he'd have known it himself. It's one of those moments where you've got to follow it through. You know you've missed your braking point, even by just a few meters. But at that speed, that will send you just that little bit too far. And in the sausage curves, just sent him barreling off towards the barrier, unfortunately. That's the nature of the beast. But he'll carry on nonetheless. Hopefully not too much damage caused. As we look at Monty Wilson still at the back of this particular train, still staring at the back of Christensen in the Pulse Simsport Ferrari, who's staring at the back of Müller, who's staring at the back of Smith. You know, this they've been playing this kind of game of chase me for a while now. Hopefully they're going to either sort that out, or maybe the pit stops will. Well, the pit stops probably will shake them up a little bit. We will see. And then there's the next duo going on. That's Kieran Vidago and Rich Smith. The 24 and 76 cars having their duo really not that far up the road. So if Kieran and Rich fight too hard, whoa, that's an unusual line going on from one of the Simsport Audis. Is that Yannick Müller has gone too wide? Not sure which one it was, or it was. There's Dave Hedges in, and it's Dave Hedges getting out of the way. That's fair enough. So both of the Simsport Audis are in that particular pack, which threw me off slightly. As Rich Smith, as we were seeing, is back to Monty Wilson. And sometimes I did say that back markers may well play a point in this race. It's taken a bit longer than I thought it was. We're now hitting a third of the race gone, and not too many major incidents, but a few unfortunate mistakes. But the track being so short is it's going to be one of these things that those mistakes are very, very costly.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed, Chris. See, Ash Knight still managing to hold off the advances of Stuart McLeod for the time being. Of course, I mean, Stuart really lost the position courtesy of his poor exit coming out of the curve of Tremonto, which we've just come out now. That Ferrari is definitely quicker than this Porsche in a straight line. There's no doubt about that. We're looking at, let's say, the fastest and the slowest two cars in a straight line on this circuit this evening, but Ash is doing all he can to hold off the advances of the number 72 machine, and he's doing a good job so far across those two to Mark Neuterlings after that little coming together a couple of laps ago between these two, as Ash Knight just comes out of Curva del Rio there, still with the position intact, just about, and in courtesy dives into the pits instead, releases Stuart McLeod. He's now going to hunt down that Bentley once more and see if he can start that all over again and try to bring himself back up the field. We'll have to see where Ash Knight comes out. I imagine he'll come out just behind Dave Hedges, who is the highest of the drivers who is currently set or currently completed their mandatory pit stop, who's currently sitting down in 25th position.
Indeed. There is Kieran Vidago and Rich Smith. You can see in the graphics the differences between the two. Yeah, it's pretty much, nip and tuck, just a 10th difference over the last 3 laps. And there is Salovic just going out of the shot as well. So 5th place potentially being caught. Let's see what the lap times were. Well, Salovic was actually 6 tenths quicker than these two last time around. So Adam Salovic is in a bit of no man's land there. He's 4.5 seconds behind Regan Mitchell, who's fallen off the back a little bit of Dean Riley. That is still a fair distance ahead of the Kieran Vidago and Will Smith. Oh, that was close. Who was that? That was De Tollenaire. Sebastian De Tollenaire in the Ferrari, nearly joining is that the lone Mercedes? It is. It's the lone Mercedes in this race. Anas Morkis. The treble 2 Beaver Grease AMG car. That still makes me smile, that teammate. A little bit deep as they're coming through down towards the Curva del Carro now. Ahead of them is Rob Jackson, Red Aston. So again, it's yet another clump of 3 cars that are all jostling for position, and that's after half an hour of racing.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case, doesn't it, Chris? They've definitely fallen back into what I suppose you call battle packs. Even these two, Robbie Stapleford and Jonathan Seville, haven't really separated too much. It's not the Stapleford display you'd come to know and love if you've been watching the GT3 Championship for the last season and a half here at Simsport Racing International. You can see Jonathan Seville actually gained a couple of tenths in that middle sector, which again just shows the quality of car that he's got underneath him through the final 2/3 of this lap. You can see the timings are definitely starting to go down a little bit. I believe that's Martin Dergala, who's just up the road, who's one of the back markers. They'll have him to circumnavigate in probably a lap or two's time. You can see the timers there. Jonathan Seville is a little bit slower at the moment. Robbie Stapleford's still a little bit quicker. He gained 4.5 tenths over the last few laps. But there you go, Jonathan Seville, just to re-say that, manages to gain a tenth himself. It did look like he was closing a small amount, as Robbie Stapleford tends to clump the sausage curb. And we've just seen a comment from Aaron Walker in the chat on the stream. It says the gap at the front is definitely close enough for a swap during the pit stops. I couldn't agree with you more, Aaron. I think it's the case of now. This is where the engineering side of Zancho Simsport, we know how competitively they take every single race they enter. This is where that engineer is going to be getting paid the true bacon, because he's going to have to try and make sure that Robbie Stapleford holds on to that first position when he comes out of the pit stop phase, which if anything goes like it has done before, Chris, in the last 2 races, we're going to start seeing people come into the pits over the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, aren't we?
I should imagine so. It's usually around the halfway stage when we see the most amount of action, as the Ferrari gets out of the way of the race leader. Very nicely done indeed. They should hopefully behave themselves with Jonathan Seville as well. What's the Ferrari going to do? He's got plenty of time. They're on that back stretch now. As a reminder, it is always the duty of the faster cars to make their way past the slower ones. Yes, it's not multi-class racing where that rule is primarily in place. They are under blue flag rules, but it's up to the slower car basically to be predictable, because they don't want to jump out of the way right in line of where the faster car's going to go. And that's a perfectly executed manoeuvre there, nicely done to both of them. They now complete that particular lap, so that is 21 laps done, and 22 laps now done, beg your pardon. And still not even 2 seconds between the top two, but they've got quite a sizable gap now, 10.5 seconds or so back to Dean Riley. There is Pavlovich still on the back of Miles Dixon. Now these two swapped round a little while ago, but the Ferrari's not been able to get away from the Porsche despite the straight line disadvantage of the Porsche. But a track like this, the straight line deficit is not so severe as it is in certain other areas. And yep, there's some more pit stops going on, so that's going to completely change the order. Christensen is in as well. So yep, you can see the orange marker, as I was pointing out earlier, the number one changing to the green square. Dave Hedges being still the lead car of those that have pitted. That's Rob Jackson. Getting very close to the Denso livery Jaguar, the moustache blazing Jaguar as I called it last time. There's the Mercedes trying to get involved in that as well. Oh, that could get a little bit ugly if they don't sort that out. Rob Jackson on the inside line should be able to hold off the one and only Mercedes. That's Arnes Morkis. Oh, getting very, very sideways. As you say, that's Sebastian de Tolonaire right behind him as well. Oh, that's too deep for Morkis. As the Keep Fighting Michael livery on the side. All over indeed. That's de Tolonaire's car. So he smacks one of the curbs, doesn't send him off into oblivion this time. It's Rob Jackson still fending them off. So after all that, there's not been a lot of change in those positions.
No, absolutely. It's showing, I think, that Arnes Morkis is really struggling to keep a hold of that Mercedes. It's not the easiest car to drive. You've got to drive it very differently to a lot of cars. It's almost very much a kind of take your time with it, be quite gentle and that sort of thing. And if you are a bit too aggressive, it will come back to bite you, as it has done here. Of course, Sebastian's trying to managing to make the move after Morkis, which went a little bit deep into one of the first few corners. Jonathan Seville's dropped a few tenths back now. It's 2.5 seconds. He won 35.1 a few laps ago, which interestingly wasn't actually the time that he's lost the most. It was the lap just gone, lap 23, where you can see he's lost half a second. Let's not call it 5 tenths, half a second. He's lost to the Zancho Simsport cars. You can see Yannick Muller on the timing tower. He's come in to the pit lane, so it's going to be keen to see. He's probably done that, I would imagine, to cover off Rasmus Christensen. It's hard to say exactly how powerful the undercut is. Of course, in this season of the Simsport Racing International's GT3 Championship, you do have to make a mandatory tyre stop. So they will be changing, getting onto fresh rubber, which is why most of these guys do tend to go for that kind of split 50-50 strategy. You do 45 minutes or roughly there, come in, fresh boots, and come out again and see where you go from there. Stuart McLeod, I tell you what, Chris, he's closed that gap very, very quickly to Mark Neutings, which shows you the pace he has round here. He's just not had the chance to really show it. If I was in his position, I'd probably have pitted by now, just to give myself a chance. You can see Mark Neutings has gained 10 positions in this race so far. And Stuart McLeod going the opposite direction. He's lost 7, of course, started P7, whereas Mark Neutings, as you can see, if you're any good at maths like I tend not to be, he started in P23.
Indeed. So, will Stuart McLeod be able to get past that mighty Bentley this time around? So this battle now resuming, following Stuart's a little bit exuberant attempt last time. Will Mark Deutelings be as rough in defence? Well, almost certainly he will be. Ritz Smith has come in the golf-coloured Aston. So that his mandatory stop. So now the lead car that's pitted is Yannick Muller down in 20th position. You see Stuart is all over the back yet again of that Bentley, just trying to force that mistake to happen, and it just has not gone his way at the moment. And there is Rich Smith, who just saw, oh wow, that's he's trying to use the curbs now to gain any kind of advantage he can over Mark Neutings. It's all well and good being a 10th quicker here and there. You need a decent pace difference to be able to get past the car ahead of you, especially on the shorter, twistier tracks. So this is working great for Mark Neutings. He just has to keep doing what he's doing. He doesn't have to try and defend fresh air unless he really feels the need to in one of the bigger braking zones. Oh, there's de Tolonaire having an argument with that's not Morkis. That's
Simon Wilkes, I believe. Yeah, Simon Wilkes. He's a lap down, so he's trying to unlap himself. So he's of course, we've seen Simon caught up in a few incidents so far, which is again unfortunate to see, but unfortunately has kind of labelled himself as a bit of a magnet for incident in the first few rounds of this season. Of course, caught up in the first lap incident in the first round at Silverstone, and of course, got caught up and had the rather unfortunate event of giving someone a bit of a nudge into the pit lane. Chris, you may remember it, Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure he won't want us to blot his copybook once more with that, but it's hard to forget those sorts of things. You can see Rich Smith on the timing charts come out a second and a half clear of Yannick Muller, so it seems to be a case of they're kind of going in, it's a domino effect, isn't it? Because Rasmus Christensen came in, I don't know why he's so far behind, because he's 13 seconds off the back as Rob Jackson goes very wide. Luckily, the position he's going to lose isn't actually a position on track, it's just going to be Simon Wilkes making his way through and going up another position on there. As Mark Neutzen, as you can see there, does pit, and again, Stuart McLeod, he spends a few laps behind the car in front of him, seems to be getting a bit frustrated, and he does something because he just manages to Jedi mind trick or something and goes, right, you're going to pit now, and sends them off into the pit lane, and then gets a bit of time for him to gain, and he'll be starting to try and close that gap back towards Slatko Pavlovic, which is around, I believe it's around 15 to 20 seconds. However, again, there's 8 seconds, so I'm completely wrong. I thought I saw 20 a moment ago. That's not a big margin at all, so there's definitely still a chance if Stuart can keep himself out of trouble to get himself back into that top 10.
Absolutely so, and Stewart's doing the right thing here. He clearly had the pace advantage over the Bentley, so now he's got a great opportunity to use it. Because now Rob Jackson again looks at the back of Passport in the mustached Jaguar, and the Ferrari there's going to get in the way. But Rob Jackson, can he hold on to the inside line? Coming through Tremonto, not quite. This raw accelerative power of that Jaguar has come. Sorry, that's kind of the rear there at the moment. Now here comes De Tolinari again on the tail end. Then Morkis is involved in there as well. Can't quite see him. I mean, it's difficult to hide.
He's there somewhere.
But there he is. You can just see the slightly rusty-coloured Mercedes in the back of the shot. Wow, that was very well defended from Passpon there. He kept his head very nicely. What I was coming on to say is some may question why the Ferrari of you said earlier, I've forgotten which Ferrari it is, Simon Wilkes, why he was sort of keep pushing for position when he was actually a lap down. You are entitled to do it. You are entitled to unlap yourself as long as you do not disadvantage the car you're unlapping yourself from. As we just saw from that last shot, he's gotten ahead of that pack and run, so he's actually quite clearly got the pace to do it. As you can see, several other people have come into the pits. That's Hagel, Wilson, and De Tolinari all in the pit lane now. So, yeah, Simon Wilkes was absolutely right to unlap himself because he clearly had the pace to then run away and do something about those he was fighting with. So he didn't further disadvantage them. But equally, he could have just sat there. He could have, obeyed the blue flag rules and jumped out of the way. But he knew he had the pace advantage over everybody else around him. So fair play to him. So we continue to look at Yannick Muller on the back of Rich Smith. These two have been locked in battle for a while. They don't have the pack around them they did last time. So that's just the way the pit stops happen, because of course the pack around them haven't all pitted at the moment. Dean Riley from third has. So that particular two-way battle between himself and Regan Mitchell has now come to an end. Now let's see if Regan had a pace advantage over Dean, and now's the time to use it if that is the case. Lead battle just shy of 4 seconds now between the two. So did John Seville burn the best out of his tyres? There's Kieran Vidago on the back of Adam Asalovic, the lead of the Simsport Ferraris. The plain white 24 car doing what he can to keep Asalovic good and true. What was the lap times between them last time? It was about a tenth and a half in Vidago's favour last time around. So Kieran's having a pretty good race, but Adam Asalovic didn't have such a good run last time out of Paul Ricard, so he's having a pretty good race so far.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. Like you say, he's always got the pace in that Ferrari. He seems to know it very well at this point. He had a fantastic result at Spa at the end of season 6 last time around. I think he qualified in 3rd position, which was quite impressive. It was only a couple of turns off of Robbie Stapleford, who, surprise, got pole position to finish off the season last year. We're starting to see the pit stops, of course, like we said, we were expecting this. There's been 45 minutes, so we're at the halfway point pretty much of this race. You see Rob Jackson and Arnaus Morkis going in for their pit stops as well. This is a move that Ash Knight needs to make pretty quickly, because Martin Dogali, you can see the car on the inside there, the 488 Ferrari, hasn't actually made his pit stop yet, and Dave Hedges is looking to try and follow the Porsche through as well. Doesn't manage to do it on that occasion, but I'm sure that'll only be a matter of time before that move is made. most of the cars now, Chris, have made that pit stop. The only ones we're seeing a bit further down the field, you can see Martin Dogala, of course, you see him on the screen there, hasn't pitted. Sam Pearce is yet to pit, and Steve Parker is yet to pit as well. And then you can see, interestingly, Jonathan Seville elects to pit early. Now, I think, Chris, that's probably the right decision because he was losing time. You could tell the tyres maybe had gone off at that point. That's probably a sensible decision. From the pole Simsport car as Dave Hedges goes slightly alongside Martin Dogala, has made the move there. But always he goes so sliding as Dogala comes out of the back onto the back straight to come down to curve Quercia. He's going to make the move to Dave at this point. But yeah, just going back to Johnny Seville, I think he's made the right decision there because he was losing time. He needed to get on fresh boots. Now it's really just a case of what does Robbie Stapleford do? Does he cover him off straight away? That would be the sensible decision. Or does he go is he a little bit overconfident, tries to extend that stint a little bit more, just to give him that extra pace towards the back end of the race?
All depends how good the undercut is here. Now we've gone over the halfway point, and there is Stapleford, exactly as you just said. He's covered off, and that's the safest thing to do, is to cover off your main opponent to negate any advantage that any kind of undercut would potentially create. So Robbie Stapleford has come in. Also, they had quite a gap between themselves and third position. Regan Mitchell has also come in, so that gap is pointless to mention because that's going to resume itself once they all come back out of the pits. Anyway, there is John Seville now in sixth position because that's going to shuffle around. There goes Kieran Vidago also in the pits as meant. Oh no, he's continuing.
That's Regan Mitchell, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, beg your pardon. There goes the Denso Jaguar, as you can see in the picture fixture there.
So now we'll just have to wait and see. Just to see what the gap is. You can see Robbie Stapleford's leaving the pit lane. The difference is you're not going to be allowed to get off the pit limiter until you get around this first little apex here. So he's actually going to be sat at, I think it's 50 kilometres an hour, or sorry, 50 mile an hour for this entire stretch here. So as Jonathan Seville comes through the final couple of the corners, he is absolutely on the ragged edge. I'll check on the time and see what the lap's going to be. I think this is going to be a quick one for this man. You can see Robbie Stapleford has just come off the pit limiter now, I believe. So he's going to be coming out as he goes through very into Parco. It's going to be close. It's not close enough though. You can actually see, unfortunately for Johnny Seville, there's actually a few cars between him as well. And unfortunately for Seville, not managed to make the undercut work. And Robbie Stapleford retains what is presumably going to be that net first position in this race.
Well, surprised is no one by that revelation, but Johnny Seville did everything he could to try and overcome that advantage. And Kieran Vidago actually leads. He's probably quite pleased about it, but sadly that lead won't hold. Pavlovich second, Stuart McLeod in third. So Stapleford, having just pitted, is now in fourth position with 42 minutes and a bit to go. That is not John Seville right behind. There is John Seville, so there's two back markers in between the two leaders now. That gap, if anything, that gap's gone up. So, yeah, 7.2 seconds now. So, possibly John Seville just pushed a little bit too hard to try and close that gap down. Made a mistake on that outlap. There is James Gilbert on the back of Miles Dixon. Oh, steady, gents. You're supposed to be representing the same organisation here. But the Audi really had the legs over the Ferrari there. I think Miles Dixon was... Well, I think Miles was a little too eager on the right foot there, and the tail of the Ferrari just got a little bit out of shape. So, well done, James Dixon. That's James Dixon, muddling up the two drivers' names. James Gilbert, beg your pardon, at his 15th position. Yeah, that was it was orchestrated once James Gilbert gave Miles Dixon almost the nudge of approval to say, right, we're going to make this orchestrated change now. As we can see, Kieran Vidago is in the pits. He's going to be exiting the pit lane any moment now. Marcus Hagel is all over the back of Chris Pinchbeck. That's a move. That's a battle that started to form over the most recent few laps. Jonathan Seville did a 1:34.4 on the last lap. Of course, we can't quite see what Robbie Stapleford's done. That is two personal bests for Seville on that one. So he's really starting to get the hammer down. We'll see what the gap is. It's just over 5 seconds back to Robbie Stapleford. So he's going to be careful. He doesn't want to push too hard too early. But realistically, someone with the pace of Robbie Stapleford, unless you make a mistake, or we see a repeat of a couple of weeks ago for Ricard where he gets that infamous drive-through penalty, realistically, Robbie is just going to have to measure that gap to an extent
and see how things kind of play out from there. Dee Riley still sits in what we would club is fifth, but what is a net third. Regan Mitchell has dropped a little bit far back. And speaking of drive-throughs, Tom Smith down in 21st position. He's been in the wars a few moments. I think that's actually him just ahead. Oh no, sorry, it's Monty Wilson ahead on the screen. His teammates, aren't they? So he is the first man of the evening to get an infamous drive-through penalty. It is one of those that you can get quite quickly at this track because you have got the AstroTurf. If you're a little bit too aggressive, you can get that penalty applied, but he's the first one. As you can see there, goodness me, Chris, that is an absolutely rapid time from Robbie Stapleford. Just comes out, first lap out of the pits. I'll tell you what I'll do, boys and girls, I'll do a 1:33.6. How's that for some fun? That was only 7/10 off of his pole position time, which is absolutely...
In fairness, John Seville was only a couple of tenths off of that pace, so he's set his own personal best that time around as well. So they're not hanging around as our top two. Whoa! Even the greats make mistakes. He just got a little bit too leery on the loud pedal there and just caught those dreaded sausage curves. We've seen cars pitched into the wall already this race because of those curves. Now that's going to cost. Won't be too bad because he was already kind of up to pace there, but it will definitely have cost a few tenths, but that will shake the confidence a little bit, so he may not be quite as eager to be on the loud pedal at that point next time around. There is Jonathan Seville at the back of the shot, 5.1 seconds last time around, or last time we checked them. That is down to 4 seconds between Stapleford and current leader McLeod. Yeah, 5.0, so it cost about a tenth and a half maybe, or tenth and a bit between the two cars. It didn't cost too much, but he definitely doesn't want to be doing that. And as you've already said, David, not even Mr. Stapleford is immune to the mistake here or there, and if he has a drive-through this time, he will not get away with it as lightly as he did last time.
No, absolutely. See a few more drivers gone into the pits there just to spit off the timing tower a little bit further down the grid, but you can see he's closing up on Stuart McLeod. That's to be expected. Stuart hasn't pitted yet, so he's going to be on very worn rubber at this point. Marcus Hagel's still in the back of his pinchback, so one of the drivers you saw there was Tom Smith. I think it was Martin Gala, who was the other driver to have pit. Of course, Smith serving the drive-through, so he'll be out and back onto the black stuff fairly quickly indeed. But yeah, what Seville's got to do is he's just got to try and be close enough if those mistakes are to happen. We don't know, of course, how many warnings these guys have got. Of course, it's 3 warnings before you get a drive-through penalty in ACC. So it could be a case if he could be on 2, he's just got to be a little bit careful. That might be one way that either of them are working at the moment. So it's something to consider. And that is something that they'll have to hold very dear to them. If they get a warning after the 3rd one, that's it. You're going through the pit lane and you're losing probably about 50 seconds. I would say, just based on the geography of the pit lane we've got here at the Misano World Circuit. Marcus Simoncelli, there's Marcus Hagel still sitting behind the Golf Aston Martin of Chris Pinchy, not having the same luck and the same performance so far this evening as Rich Smith has. He's up in 6th position. He's the highest McLaren at the moment, as you can see a little bit further down, because there's quite a few Ferraris in tow. Vidago, Wilson, Christensen and Salovic. Not in the order they were earlier in the race, but still very close to each other nonetheless.
I think we've lost Mr. Pavlovich, or he's pitted or had an incident, because on my timing screen he is plummeting through the field.
Oh dear.
Have we lost a Porsche somewhere along the line? Because I can't see him on the tower.
He's 17th on the tower. He's a few seconds behind Ash Knight.
Oh, he is. I beg your pardon.
Does seem like he's... there he is. He's still driving. So we're all good. But no, that was a very slow...
A wild Porsche appears. No, I guess he must have pitted, or he's had an incident of some description. He did a 2:38 last time, so I don't think he parked for a minute. He must have been. It must have been a pit stop for him. I could just see his name plummeting through the field, but I didn't see his name on the tower, so I wondered if we'd actually lost him entirely. But never mind. He's the apex predator has been spotted. So we jump back to Arnes Morkis in the lone Mercedes on the back of Rob Jackson. Lovely red Aston. It's a drive-through. Miles Dixon is one of the Pulse boys, has misbehaved, And he served it straight away. Wow, he was on the ball.
He got that very, very late in the day, didn't he? He's probably got that, and I've noticed this from experience because I've gotten many a drive through here at Misano in the past. He's got that on the second to last corner, which is coming towards now, because it's one of those where you can take so much speed through it, but if you go a little bit too wide, you are getting stung by the stewards for that. So just as you come through here, he's clearly gone a little bit too wide on the outside there, and that's what's given it to him. Fortunately for him, of course, has managed to just literally go, right, I've got to drive through, I will just sling it into the pits now and get that out of the way. That's going to drop him though behind this battle, so it's going to drop him outside of the top 20 you'd expect. Zarnis Morkis just shows the inside of that Beaver Creek AMG to the back of Rob Jackson in the 679 Aston Martin. It's quite a nice looking Aston Martin, that one. Dean Riley has lost out in the pits as well. We can see he's dropped back. He's actually lost a couple of seconds to Regan Mitchell, and a position to boot as Stuart McLeod, not Sebastian McLeod, said before. Stuart McLeod has gone into the pits. He's the last of the running drivers, I believe, to serve his mandatory pit stop. So he'll shake out back into, I would imagine, the lesser kind of areas of the top 10, potentially the early teens of this grid. And Robbie Stapleford resumes as your race leader. I think that's him in the background of this little battle. As you see, Harness Morkis getting very, very squirmy coming out of curve pressure there.
A little bit. There's a lot of horses in that Mercedes. Just wanted to go. Yep, there is the race leader. Very nicely done by Arnes Morkis. The lead shrank a little bit, but of course with this much traffic, it is hardly surprising. We're almost 2/3 of the way through the race already, and still the lead gap. These are just over 5 seconds. That's not an insurmountable gap at all. And of course traffic is likely to play a bit of a part in this. Where did Miles Dixon reappear? He is... Oops! Well, that's Arnes Morkis doing a bit of lawn mowing! Oh, nearly gets... Is that Copeland? That's Andy Copeland right behind him. Oh, that was Ashley Copeland. See, I'm doing it now. Doing it again. So that Mercedes sandwich between two Astons there. Oh, that was so close between Morkis and Copeland.
I think that was Miles Dixon, Chris, who we saw off to the inside there, which caused Dan Morkis to do his grass cutting. Because you can see he's gone back into the pit lane again. He's gone down to P24 and tumbling on the timing tower. Not sure what happened. Hopefully, we'll get the chance to see a replay and we can see exactly what happened. A Snake Passport nearly goes up the back end of Ash Copeland in that Aston Martin. That's Sam Pearce getting out of the way very appropriately as we go through Curva del Rio. Very good work for her to move out of the way, seeing as these guys are all fighting for the position on track. And this is the kind of racing we like to see here at Simsport Racing National. Arnes Morkis looks to the outside. Rob Jackson is there. This is the fight for P19 at the moment. So again, just shows the testament to the commitment that these guys have in these races. Even though they're fighting for the lesser points per positions, they are still going absolutely hammer and tongs against each other and really trying to pull out every single stop, which is beautiful to see.
I think that was Jonathan Seville that was going for an explore, because he's lost 5 seconds in that last lap alone, nearly 6 seconds indeed. So that lead is now 10.8 seconds between the top two. I think it was Jonathan Seville that's been, well, he's certainly been severely compromised that last time around. So we switched to Kieran Vidaga, who's also lost out in the pit stop phase, now behind Yannick Müller, who's having a great run in the Audi, the lead Audi on the field. He's staring at the back of, is that Rich Smith we just saw go out of the shot? Potentially. I saw a Golf livery car there. I wasn't sure which one it was.
I think it was, yeah, because Rich Smith is a couple of seconds up the road from these two, so that definitely will be Rich. Chris Pinchbeck still holding off Marcus Hagan according to the timing towers. Oh, Rasmus Christensen goes at the inside and towards Curva del Caro and just gives Monty Wilson a little bit of a love tap as they go through that fast right-hander, and that was very, very close. Fortunately, the two of them have managed to continue facing the same way, which is what we like to see. Rasmus Christensen trying to make a move didn't come off on that occasion as we come towards the final 31 minutes of this race. Robbie Stapleford leading the way now to the tune of 13 seconds. I think you're right, Chris. I think it was Jonathan Seville who lost that time in the final sector. He's got a 13-second gap back to Seville in second. Regan Mitchell was another 8 seconds back in the final points paying position. Dean Riley, Rich Smith in fourth and fifth. Yannick Müller, Kieran Vidago, Monty Wilson, Rasmus Christensen and Adam Misanovic rounding out the top 10. As you see, Sem Racing in the chat on the stream saying, surprised they both held it at those speeds. We're very, very impressed, I think, aren't we, Chris? And it was Yeah. If they had the chance, so I'm sure it'd be a bit of a change of underwear at that point, because that was a very spicy little move indeed.
Yeah, there was a fair amount of clenching going on there, I dare say. There certainly was in this commentary seat. I can tell you I was expecting that to go horribly wrong. But Kieran Vidago is doing a great job of staying right on the back of Yannick Müller. A few times where the Ferraris looked set to make the move, the Audi has managed to fend off the Italian horses behind. Is that going to be the case? We come back down towards Curva del Carro. No, he's not in a position to make that one stick unless he banzais it here, but that's only going to go horribly wrong if he did. No, nicely done between them. But Yannick Müller is doing a great job of fending off all that pressure that is being applied to him. Yeah, Jonathan Seville hasn't managed to recapture that early, lead-setting pace. His pace is still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. It's just a little bit off the boil from where he was earlier in the race. Maybe there's a bit of damage to the car that we don't know about. If you hit these curves hard enough, it's going to hurt. So we've already seen Robbie Stapleford slightly squiggly hitting one of them earlier on, but he seems to have gotten away without any particular damage, still setting lightning fast laps. These guys are just unreal on the pace they can do. They do in the wet what I could only ever hope to do in the dry. But it was good to see. You said earlier we've had someone join us that only either yesterday or today joined the season and then jumped straight into the session. We would always implore anybody to, if you fancy a go, by all means give it a try. As we see Rasmus Christensen on the inside line. That's Monty Wilson. He's just coming past. Oh, that's close, but manages to keep it on the straight and narrow. Oh, he's already having that one argued back against him. Monty's not
goes deep.
Does, but Monty, you're not going to get an outside manoeuvre there. But wow, look at the early defensive manoeuvre from Christensen. Jumps straight to that inside line. Now to the outside goes Monty. But it's going to be the long way around. That's probably not going to pay dividends, but he's keeping the pressure on nonetheless. Trying to go back underneath, but no, his entry into that right-hander was compromised. Very nicely driven from both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good defensive work there from Rasmus Christensen. Just put the car exactly where he needed to be. And as we've mentioned before, it is an overtaking spot, but it's not the easiest one. You've got to have the cojones to do it. And on that occasion, Monty Wilson didn't manage to get the move done. See Adam Misanovic just up in the background there. He's being closed down by Chris Pinchbeck and Marcus Hagel. And one person who I would say he was starting to make some inroads into that position was Regan Mitchell on Jonathan Seville. But then I say that, and Seville's run a 1:34.2 on the last lap, which was 5 cents of a second quicker than Mitchell's. That gets back up to nearly 9 seconds now. And it's starting to ebb and flow a bit more. The top three are split by some decent gaps. Rasmus Christensen looked like he went fairly sideways as they go onto the back straight there. Not exactly the way you want to be doing it down towards the braking zone. And Yannick Müller Yannick Müller has lost the position to Kieran Vidago. We can see that. I didn't quite catch exactly how that happened. But you can see timing chart is opposite to what it is now, which means that Vidago's made the move. He was close anyway. He's managed to make the move stick, and he's finally... Chris managed to get the move done. As always, see Rasmus Christensen's under pressure from Monty Wilson. You're not going to get round the outside there, Monty, are you? Let's face it, boyo. You're going to have to wait another moment to try and do it. Interestingly, though, Rasmus Christensen just looked to defend so early this time.
No, indeed, but that's where it started for Monty Wilson last time around, if you recall. Now again, he's doing a carbon copy of what he did last time around, and it stung him again. Whoa! Banzai on the inside line, but that is going to result in impact. No, that's a traffic jam. That's a Salavic has come through. Pinchback and Hagel are going to gain 2 positions out of it. I mean, in fairness to Monty Wilson, he did allow Christensen back into position there, but that's given 2 positions to the next 3 cars, and it's actually given us a 5-car train, which is going to be quite interesting in this last half an hour. That impact was fairly inevitable. As soon as Monty committed to it, there was no way that was going to pay off, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Inevitable yet avoidable, you would hazard to say, which is a bit of a shame. It's a bit of good battle. It will still continue to be so. I don't think that's going to be Monty giving up the ghost for the rest of this race. There's still 26 minutes to go, and I'm sure he'll want that move, especially because now, that's what I was going to say. I thought it was going to be for the top 10, but it's not just yet. Marcus Hagel, the car in front of him, that McLaren 720, is the one holding on to the final position in the top 10, but that's promoted Adam Misalovic, Chris Pinchbeck and Marcus Hagel back up a few positions. further down the field, it's two Porsches running line astern. So we've got the Apex Predators car of Zlatko Pavlovic, so we've got Ash Knight in the number 9. Just ahead of him, you've got the lesser spotted and the more commonly spotted Porsche in this one, because Pavlovic, we saw a lot at the start of the race that we were worried we'd lost him, weren't we, Chris? He's come back, and Ash Knight has been in the wars as well. And it'd be interesting to see whether either of these ones can make the move, because no one's got a speed advantage, which everyone else does on the Porsche. So it's going to require a little bit more racecraft than you normally expect. Racecraft, that's certainly one way of doing it. It's coming together. It's the flashes from the Porsche of Ash Knight there, the number 9 machine. Zlatko Pavlovic is going, look, I'm sorry, son, I was ahead of you. You've turned into me. I'm just going to carry on going. And I'm sure Ash won't be particularly happy. I mean, we can't say anything. Of course, the stewards will investigate anything like this after the race anyway. But that felt to me as if Pavlovic had made the move. It was very, very aggressive, but he had made the move, and I think it was just a case of Ash Knight just turning into something who would have just randomly appeared in front of him.
We couldn't quite see whether it was who hit who, whether it was Pavlovic understeered into Ash Knight or Ash Knight didn't anticipate Pavlovic being there. Either way, Zlatko is held on to 15th and is starting to get a bit of a gap between himself and the green Porsche. As we switch back to Rasmus Christensen on the back of Marcus Hagel with Monty Wilson in tow. So will these two cross swords again? We will see as they continue to go through the lap. Right ahead of them, there is Pinchbeck and Hagel, like I said earlier, inside the top 10. So they'll be quite pleased with that. 41 laps done now, 24 minutes and change to go. So a bit of fatigue will be kicking in now for some of these drivers. I made this point last time. I really admire these guys for going this long. I can barely manage a sprint race. So how these guys can just lap after lap after lap after lap at this kind of pace is just absolutely incredible. And there you go. That's highlighting the pace difference between our top two. Robbie Stapleford is just opening up that gap almost every lap consistently now without any particular issue. Obviously, the last one did go the low way of Johnny Seville, but only just 1.4 second difference to the number 1 car over those last 3 laps. So the McLaren is once again absolutely on song, but as we have already seen, he's not immune to mistakes, so it may well change the outcome of this race. If he did earn that drive-through again, he would not retain the lead like he did at Paul Ricard. There is Ash Coupland. We saw him very close to a few people earlier on, and he's on the back of the lone Jaguar of Passpon, the moustache emblazoned Denso Jaguar. I know it's not a moustache, but that's what it makes me think of, and I can't get that image out of my head, so I don't apologise for that at all. So Stein Passpon is doing well. Again, he's not actively defending; he's just holding his line and making Ash Coupland work for it. But we haven't had any particular quiet phases in this race. There's always been battles throughout the field. And these guys are well aware it's an endurance race, but they're very much fighting like it's a sprint race. It's been brilliant to see.
Absolutely, Chris. And I think that's partly due to some of the incidents we had a little bit earlier on in the race. Of course, that shifted the field up a little bit. Of course, we've got the likes of Dave Hedges. We've got Simon Wilkes is a bit further down as well. There's people who are out of position, and there's people who are lower than you'd expect. There's also people that are higher than expected, but it's no disservice to those who are holding on to these positions as well as they are. One of these is Rasmus Christensen made the move on Monty Wilson. Of course, those are coming together a few laps ago, but Rasmus has kept the position fairly comfortably up until now, as Ash Coupland looks to have made the move, as he's managed to get past Stein Passpon on this last lap at some point. So an error just behind, I think that's Wilkes no, it's not Wilkes in the background, apologies. He's a little bit further back. So move done by Ash Coupland, gets himself up into the top 20, so I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with that. Monty Wilson still looking at the back of Rasmus Christensen, Marcus Hagel, Chris Pinchbeck and Adam Misalovic make up this little quintet of cars that we've got at the moment, all the way down from 8th down to 12th as well. Monty's looking at the position. He's looking for moves where you don't need to be looking for moves. You kind of need to just sit in behind, let the move kind of naturally kind of grow, and then go for it at some other point. Like now, if he hadn't have done that through those build-ups towards the back straight, he might well have had a chance to make the move into Quercia, but he didn't. So he's just got to try and bide his time a little bit. It can be frustrating if you can see the gap building ahead of you as well. It can be one of those where you just want to get it done, but He needs to just bide his time a little bit. He seems to have the pace. There's something very similar in pace. You jump onto the back of the top of this whole Simsport car. Then the 27, of course, teammate of Jonathan Steele, who's having a much better race than his teammate thus far. It's almost a role reversal of what it was like before Ricard a few weeks ago. Monty Wilson's still looking for the move. He's not going to try it again, is he? He's getting around the outside. He's done this once or twice before. It didn't work. He didn't get it done on the first occasion. He made contact on the second and on the third time, which you normally expect to be the charm, Chris, which went wide and didn't make the move at all. So reset, go again, see it go.
Yeah, you can imagine that fight to resume in a few laps' time. But yeah, Monty realised that he'd gone that tiny bit too deep and he bailed on it, which caused him to go very, very wide. Fair play, he could have absolutely slammed into the back of Rasmus Christensen, but he realised that he wasn't going to make that one stick and bailed on it. So he's cost him a few tenths, but you know he's got the pace to close that back down. And that's going to allow Rasmus to chase off after Marcus Hagel as we switch back to Sebastian de Tolineri in the 330 Ferrari. Still hustling the Jaguar. I think Passbomb's falling a little bit in the field now, right behind. Who is that? It's a McLaren behind them.
Right behind them, I think.
Okay. So that's the fourth place car looking to put another lap on this particular pack. So de Tolineri. And right ahead as well is the Coupland and it's Coupland, Passbon. Well, they're all in a pretty little line, aren't they? So Coupland, Passbon, and de Tolineri in that three-way fight. But there's of course cars that are not on the same lap that is around them, which it looks a little confusing as well. That white Ferrari is not with them, so they will be needing to give Dean Riley some space fairly soon. There you saw the blue flag being waved. And there's the number 2 wanting to get through. Don't want to lose any time between this particular pack. So far so good though. No one is. We haven't seen any major comings together between these guys. Oh, de Tolineri! I think he kind of second guessed himself there. 1 minute he thought, I need to let Dean through, and then went for the apex anyway. I think he kind of got crossed up there, but through goes the McLaren, and the Jaguar trying to do the same thing. Starting past Bon, he's going to have to get on the brakes, and there we go. He does manage to retain his position. If the Ferrari hadn't had that mistake, he could have tried to follow the McLaren through, but Stein Passbon was on the case and retains his position.
Very good decision there from Stein Passbon, like you said there, Chris. He made the move. He let Dean Riley get through without compromising himself too much. Of course, like you say, Tolineri did go wide going into Curva del Rio, so obviously kind of just gave Dean the chance to make the move and go make the lap up anyway. But Stein did that perfectly. He couldn't have managed it any better on the brakes. Let off the brakes a little bit. Although he's not done that very well as it goes in towards Curva del Caro. He's got a little bit wide there. Again, just had enough of the gap behind him to hold on to P21, but that is looking rather precarious for the Denso 444 Jaguar in this evening's race. He's not had the best of starts in the championship, but then again, he's driving one of the arguably the worst performing cars on the grid. Because as I said many times before, and I'll say it again, Stein does normally like to pick the car lesser chosen by most, and that is certainly the case of the Jag. It's not exactly the quickest car in the world. I imagine at some point we'll see him in the Vita, and I'm sure we'll see him in the V12 Aston. At some point, goes a little bit wide coming out of variant of the Parco again. Sebastian Tolineri, he could have shoved it up the inside there, but in fact that's a brilliant move. If that's a mistake from Passbon, because I thought he should have made the move earlier, Chris, but he's timed that perfectly, just gone straight through without any hassle whatsoever.
Nicely done. Yeah, well, wasn't certain if that was a mistake, or if it was a mistake, he then knew that the game was up and didn't fight too hard to keep de Tolineri behind him. As we now jump back up to this pack that Marcus Hagel's been in must feel like to him absolutely forever. Behind Pinky Pinchbeck, there's Adam Selovitz just gone out of the shot, so the Ferrari is not too far away from this particular pack. Christensen has lost Monty Wilson a little. What's the gap there? About 1.1 seconds. That's the nose of the number 27 Pulse JR Simsport Ferrari. That's what it looks like from a roadside perspective. So lots of cars still fighting for the same bit of tarmac. Oops! Who's that? That's
Sam Pearce, I think it is. Just
so it's getting out of the way. And he's driving.
Oh, very close. Goodness me.
Drive-through for number 9. Ashley Knight has misbehaved, and that's a drive-through for the number 9 Porsche.
Very, very unfortunate for Ash Knight there. He's having a good race to that point. Of course, lost the position to Zlatko Pavlovic, but was still proving rather good despite the fact that Porsche is not arguably the most competitive car round here. Hagel's still all over the back of Chris Pinchbeck. This is giving Adam Misalovic a chance just to stretch his legs a little bit. He's got that gap up to 1.3 seconds now. As you can see, just going into Curva Misano there to finish off lap number 46 for these guys. And meanwhile, at the top of the time charts, with just 15 minutes of this race, Marine, unbelievable. It feels like it's absolutely flown by. This one has been an absolute classic from start to finish, starting till the point we're at the moment anyway. Robbie Stapleford leads the way. And considering the way this race started, you would have expected him to have an 18 or 17 second gap to Johnny Seville in second place, but that is how it works at this moment in time. Seville getting caught up in a couple of things and lost a bit of time in both stints. Regan Mitchell sitting back in third position. He's rounding out the podium, and you can see there very, very close between Marcus Hagel and Chris Pinchbeck. And Steve, we're talking about that now. I think you're joining us to finish off this race, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, buddy. Yeah, what a race it's been.
It's been an absolute belter so far. Of course, you're having to do both jobs now, aren't you? You're having to join me in the comms box and bring us all these beautiful camera angles as well. But I'm sure you're going to be a busy boy for these last 15 minutes, aren't you? Because there's still a fair bit left to go.
There's still so much going on, buddy. It's been absolutely amazing, this race. I mean, some of the driving standards we've seen this evening have been second to none, absolutely side by side. A little bit of contact here and there, but some really good battles for positions, some fantastic respect shown, and it's still going on. Like you say, with 14 minutes to go, there's battles up and down the field, and yeah, my job on the cameras this evening's been made doubly hard by the fact that there's so many battles going on, trying to pick the best ones for you guys.
Oh, absolutely. We like to keep you not well. I say we like to keep you nice and busy. I think it's these guys who are doing the work on track that make that happen. Rasmus Christensen going very, very close behind Marcus Hagel there. He's actually managed to drop Monty Wilson to the tune of about 2 seconds, so he's managed to bridge that gap. I imagine it's a bit of a mistake as well. I thought Rasmus Christensen was going to try and make the move going into Variante Parker. That doesn't do it on this occasion, but he's looking like he's got the pace and the bit between his teeth to try and get past the sister Pulse Simsport machine car in the form of Marcus Hagel, the number 117. Of course, Rasmus Christensen was second 4. Managed to get a podium position last time out. Paul Ricard not had quite the same amount of luck this time out. Kieran Vidago is sitting behind Rich Smith, and again, it's a really good showing for the Simsport guys tonight, isn't it, Steve? 3rd and 6th for these guys. Of course, we know that Regan and Kieran are 2 very quick guys anyway, but it's a really good showing for these 2, and it will really do them a favour in the teams championship as well, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely, some solid points for a lot of drivers this evening. Yeah, like quite rightly say, the Simsport guys doing a good job. Lots of battles though. The guys have been battling, you know, it seems endlessly with each other. We've seen the same sort of groups of car, nobody really having much of an advantage. Doesn't matter what mark of car you're in this evening, there doesn't seem to be a massive advantage. We know the Porsches are a little bit slow, potentially on the top speed, but there's lots of corners to squirt those Porsches out of, and they're certainly quick out of the corners. But Kieran Vidago's seemed like an age that he's been following Rich Smith, and he couldn't get much closer now without trying to put a pass on him, and Richie's just soaking up all that pressure and showing what a talented driver he is. And Kieran Vidago's trying every trick in the book now to really put Rich under the pressure, try and force a mistake, because at the end of the day I don't think he's got a big enough pace advantage to get a pass done. I think he's going to come from a mistake, like he so often does with these guys when they're so closely matched, and especially around a track like Misano this evening, which it offers its overtaking opportunities, but you've got to be right place, right time, and fully committed. I think as we see Kieran there just jinking, just showing his nose and letting Rich know that he's ready to take advantage of that opportunity if it arises.
Absolutely, you can see we've got some back markers in front of them as well. I think that's Sebastian Titolinera, Ash Coupland and Rob Jackson, so they're all having their battles themselves. This is going to prove rather interesting to see how these guys managed to get out of the way. As obviously we were talking about a little bit earlier on the broadcast, the blue flag rulings in GT3 racing is not necessarily a fact that you have to just completely bomb out of the way. You just have to make it predictable and give the guy on the leading lap a chance to make the moves. Kieran Vidago looks around the outside into Curvone. He's going to look always very, very close to the back of Chris Pinchbeck. Rich Smith rather. Wrong goal for Aston Martin as Kieran very oddly slows look down a lot more than I would have expected going into Curva del Cara there, and as a result seems to lose about the best part of a second there 2, Rich Smith, wonder if he just outbraked himself there, Steve, do you reckon?
Yeah, maybe, and he's just sort of regrouped himself a little bit, but he does need to be on the back of Rich Smith now as they're coming up to some back markers, because that's where maybe the advantage is going to be gained, where the opportunity might present itself. So he does need to close that gap up and just work that a little bit harder now to try and recover from that mistake. Like you say, I think potentially just missed a breaking point. Trying to, unless you drive these cars and race like these guys are, it's difficult to explain exactly how hard it is to race as close as they are racing this evening.
Absolutely. Some drivers who are still racing as closely as they have been all evening. As these three here, in fact, these four, no, it's these three, sorry. No, because Monty Wilson's back on the trail as well. So it's Chris Pinchbeck, followed now by Rasmus Christensen, who's managed to make the move on Marcus Hagel. That must have happened over the last couple of laps. And then you've got Monty Wilson just sitting on the tail of those. It's unsurprising that Wilson's come back into the train if this has been a change of position. But Rasmus Christensen is looking to make the move on the second of the Golf Racing. Oh, as he goes into Quercia there, doesn't manage to make the move again. Mark Neutelings-esque, I think we'd say. There's a bit of contact between the two. That is unfortunate. That's an absolutely avoidable incident there between the two. You can see the bonnet of the car of Chris Pinchbeck just popping up a little bit there with a bit of damage as they've gone into the wall. That is an unfortunate incident, Stephen, one that you would argue was pretty avoidable to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'll get reviewed, it'll get looked at, but I think all incidents are avoidable. You know, it's one of those. It's just a case of whether it becomes a racing incident and potentially both drivers could have done something slightly different to avoid it, or whether one car will be held accountable and a penalty may be applied. But we'll have to wait and see post race with the stewards that will look into that incident. But yeah, I think most incidents are avoidable. It's just it's one of those who could have done more to avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. As we've mentioned a few times this season already, the stewarding is being supported by the race department stewarding app, so it picks up on every piece of contact that happens in the race, which makes the submitting of these sorts of protests, things like that, a lot easier for the guys involved. And normally, to be fair, weeds out the ones that don't necessarily need to be protested at all, because you can pick back up on it, you can quite easily find it, and you can move on from there. Two drivers who are still very close and haven't made contact just yet, as opposed to the other Golf Racing McLaren, is of course Kieran Vidago, who's managed, to be fair, he's picked right back up onto the back of Rich Smith. He's clearly got the pace, Steve, but just not, like you say, he's not got the pace differential to make the move stick. And they're coming towards his back markers still. It looks like they've managed to circumnavigate there De Tolinera, who's just dropped back off into the background. But he's, like you say, he needs to kind of think about this move pretty sharpish now. He's got 8 and a bit minutes left, and he's got a chance for top 5, which would really do him some good in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the problem he's got now is that even when he's in the slipstream behind Rich Smith potentially is in the slipstream of the car in front, which is negating that effect for Kieran Vidago. So although he's managing to stay close, he's not gaining enough of an advantage in the slipstream to get past Rich, and Rich is just doing what he needs to do. He's not really defending hard, he's driving his line, he's putting the car where he needs to put it, and he's driving his own race at the moment, and as hard as Kieran is pressing, and you can see there, he just braked a little bit late again and just blocked up. It appeared the back end broke away then, but he managed to gather it up. But again, it's cost him a few tenths, and if he gets a gap with Rich and Rich manages to put these back markers in between himself and Kieran, he could give Rich the advantage, but that's one of them dispensed with, and on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw there, I think Rich went a little bit wide going into the second apex of the first chicane variant of Parker there, and if Kieran Vidago hadn't had that little slide, then we might have seen a chance for Vidago to make the move. One man who's got himself back into the top 10 is the man in your cam at the moment in the Bloodline Sims Racing machine, Monty Wilson. His teammate Tom Smith has not had the best of races. He's dropped down prior to, of course, caught up in incidents. Mark Neutelings is all over the back of Dave Hedges at the moment. Mark's been defending most of this race, as we've seen when we've caught him on camera, but this time it looks like it's a role reversal. Dave doing the defending on this occasion. Of course, Dave qualified in the top 10 and was unfortunate to get caught up on the first few laps and ended up dropping it down the order as a result. Ash Cooper, that's really close as they go into that fast right hand just before Curva del Caro nearly takes Rob Jackson with him. It looks like they thought the drivers of Rich Smith and Kieran Vidago managed to make their way past these two, which is good, and it's exactly what Rich Smith wanted. Oh, see, Cooper's just showing his nose at the inside there, Steve. Again, there seems to be a lot of impatience, should we say, with some of these drivers. They want to make the move as soon as possible, don't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. They're getting impatient. They've had 84 minutes to try and get the move done. Now, last 6 minutes, and we just seen there that Jackson is, he's really pressing, and he's got that move done there on Nash Copeland, and he's gained that position. Now he's going to defend it for the last 6 minutes of this race. So they are running out of time. So I suppose, yeah, they're going to be impatient now. They're going to have to press, and I think that leads me on to Kieran Vidago. He needs to press this now. He's got some sort of pace advantage over Rich Smith at the moment. As we said, it's not enough to get the move done yet, but he needs to really press. As we see, he's closing right up in the braking zone. We've seen him lose time, and he manages to get that time back and catch Rich again, but he just doesn't have that pace to get the job done, to get it past. We're coming into the stage of the race where they're going to be the lightest they've been with fuel and whatnot. They're going to be in the best trim possible, a little bit of tyre wear, but the guys were saying before the start of this race that this track isn't that hard on tyres. They're very, very comfortable with the tyre wear, so expect to see them pushing just as hard at this late stage in the race, and maybe Kieran's got something in the bank for the last few laps.
Absolutely, that remains to be seen. 5 minutes on the nose left in this race here at the Misano World Circuit. Marco Simoncelli, it's round 3 of season 7 of the Simsport Racing International GT3 Championship. Robbie Stapleford leads the way with a commanding lead, which is not what we would have expected after the first sort of 15 minutes of this race, from Johnsonsville to the tune of 20 seconds. Regan Mitchell sits back in 3rd position. He's getting another podium, it looks like, for his troubles this afternoon, which is good work. He's managed to jump Dean Riley throughout this race. Of course, they were following 3rd and 4th towards the start of this race. Rich Smith, he's still at this point in time holding off Kieran Vidago, with Yannick Muller, Adam Misalovic, Marcus Hagel and Monty Wolfson running out the top 10. You can then see the drivers who are just on your screen, which is Rasmus Christensen, Stuart McLeod and Chris Pinchbeck. Of course, Christensen and Pinchbeck getting caught up a few laps ago. That's dropped them back out of the top 10, unfortunately. And Stuart McLeod, despite being caught up in some incidents at the start of the race, he's managed to make his way back up towards the top 10 as well, and has done a fantastic job of it as well. He's clearly had the pace tonight, just unfortunately got caught up, and in certain circumstances got stuck behind people who were less than willing to let them get through as well. As is continuing to be the case for Rich Smith, I can imagine. Kieran, he's not the most angry of people. I've been talking to him quite a lot over the last few weeks or so. He's not necessarily an angry person, but I'm sure he's getting a little bit frustrated. Steve, stuck behind that Golf Aston Martin, isn't he, towards the back end of this race? Yeah,
absolutely. And talking of frustrated, Dave Hedges hasn't had the strongest race this evening. He's had a few incidents, but Mark Neumann has just managed to put a pass on him and drop Dave down again, as our timing tower will now just update and prove me right there, as Mark having a fantastic race this evening. He's moved a few positions up tonight. Just going to double check and see how far that is, but he's definitely gained quite
7
a few
positions. Yeah,
7
he started P23. Yeah, really good work from Mark. Like you say, I said earlier, normally focuses on his defensive work, but he's had the chance to turn that around on this occasion. I did notice that Dave's last lap was a 1:38, which contributes potentially to a mistake there, which might have given Mark a position, but nonetheless he had to be there to capitalise on it, and that's a very good showing from Mark Neumann. As you see there, just confirmation. P16 gained 7 positions, and you can see there Dave Hedges P17 dropped 6 positions from his starting position of 11th on the grid. So not the best showing from Dave. He won't be particularly happy with himself, I've no doubt, but I'm sure he'll come back fighting for the race at Snetterton in a couple of weeks' time as we come into the final 2.5 minutes of this race. We turn our attention back to one of the closest battles on track at the moment, and what has been for the last 5 or 6 laps at least. But unfortunately for Kieran Vidago, he's still sat in the wheel tracks of that Golf Aston Martin, appropriated by Rich Smith, the number 76 machine. Rich has driven a fantastic race so far, so he wasn't able to drive at Paul Ricard, wasn't able to attend, so didn't manage to put in any result for that one. But he's making amends on this occasion, and like I say, holding on to 5th position at this point in time. But it is close into the final couple of minutes, so we're going to have probably 2 laps left. That entirely depends on where the leader, Robbie Stapleford, is. I've got no idea where he is, because he's disappeared off into the distance. And you can see him there. Just to mention that, Steve, thank you very much, very kindly putting him on the camera for us. That looks like we are going to see 2 more laps. So this lap and 1 more, seeing as we've got about a minute and a half left. He's coming through Curve Question, just lapping at Sam Pearce. I think that is there as well. I think we can definitely see, Steve, we talked about Sam in the last race at Paul Ricard. Of course, it was their first race of Simsport Racing International, but definitely seems to be gaining pace every week, because Since it certainly seems to be a lot quicker. I noticed in qualifying wasn't too far off the absolute pace of those who managed to get a few people in the result as well. So definitely seeing some improvements from the Red Line Sat Racing driver this evening.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always good to see, you know, these the drivers that join us, some of them sort of less experienced than others, but the community does welcome new drivers of any ability, and there's always somebody to give assistance, whether it be setups or whether it's jumping on a server and doing some laps and having chat and just having fun, and that's what the community is all about. We've seen some drivers with real progression over the from joining us to where we are now. Even Rich Smith won't mind me saying that when he first joined us, potentially lapped in the first few races, he had quite a few crashes and things like that, but look at him now, he's a solid P5 at the moment, defending very well, but that's just practice and the community and just everybody helping each other, and that's what it's all about. It's just for fun.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if you do want to get involved with the community, if you want to hop into the Discord server and either get stuck in, whether it's on the track, whether it's in practice servers, fun races, or you want to join Steve, Chris or myself or anyone else in the commentary box, then just head into the description of the YouTube video, or if you're on any of the other links as well, you've probably got a bit of detail on it already, hop into the Discord server and there will be someone more than willing to help you out, get you into things. And like you say, join these people on the track. No matter what pace you are, you're always welcome, and it means that we do get fantastic racing. And as we mentioned a few times, mentioned it one last time, is Robbie Stapleford rounds Curve at Tremonto for the final time. We do welcome everyone of all abilities, and like I say, we've got a very welcoming community and people who are more than happy to help if the need require. For someone who doesn't need any help as he comes through the final couple of corners, comes through Curve early. No, none whatsoever. He's certainly, he's got an engineer with him, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's how the Zancho boys work, but no one who's not any help on track is Robbie Stapleford. Comes round through Curve del Carro for the final time, in towards the final couple of corners. Curve Misano to finish things off. It looked a little bit touch and go at the start, and I'm sure we'll be very intrigued to see what he says about that towards the end of this. But Robbie Stapleford comes through, 57 laps completed to win round 3 of the Simsport Racing International GT3 Championship season number 7. That is 3 from 3. He takes the Triple Crown once again. He takes the pole position, the fastest lap at the moment anyway, and the win as well. Jonathan Seville, he looked like he was going to throw a candle towards Robbie Stapleford at the start of the race, but he comes through to finish in a very positive second place after some tumultuous results at Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago. And Regan Mitchell, again the lesser spotted Regan Mitchell, he comes to know, as I like to know him these days anyway, rounds things out in third place with Dean Riley just over a second behind in the end. Did manage to close up. And we can see here, we come back to this battle, it's still very close, but Rich Smith does look like, unless he gets a horrible exit out of Misano once more, he's going to come home in 5th with Kieran Vidago in 6th place. Yannick Muller looks to be rounding the final corner as well. He's going to come through in 7th place. Adam Isalovic, Marcus Hagel and Monty Wilson are going to round out your top 10. It looks like there, as you can see, everyone coming through. You can actually see it's rather appropriate there, Steve. A Samada 1-2 over the line. Of course, that sign works a little bit further down, but it's nice to see that nonetheless, nice and orchestrated.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make a good screenshot for their team canvas. But Adam Mazailovic, it's worth mentioning. His progression through the ranks over the last few seasons. Absolutely some solid results, and showing how consistency is key around here. You're not always going to win the race with those hot laps. You need to be consistent, and that's what it's all about for scoring these points. Is just getting into that consistent zone and bringing the car home.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robbie Stapleford takes his 3rd win in the season, a 3rd win in a row, as we now reach the halfway point of this season here. In the Simsport Racing International GT3 Championship, we will hear from our top 3 when they become available to us. We'll drag them in and we'll ask them those hard-hitting questions we love to do. And I'll be very intrigued to see how the top 2 fare, Steve, because of course, as we've mentioned this before, Chris and I were talking about it a little bit earlier on in the race, it was very close between those two in the first sort of 40 minutes of the race, wasn't it? It was really after the pit stop, or just before and after the pit stop phase, that Robbie just seemed to arguably stretch his legs a little bit and eke out that gap. But towards the start, it was very touch and go for the Simsport driver, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It almost looked like we were going to get a bit more of a fight this evening, and I mean, I think Seville did an absolutely awesome job, you know, to do what he did and to sort of stay as close as he did to Robbie Stapleford. Because let's face it, over the last few races and even last championship, you know, he's really sort of he's been the one to beat, and it's almost looked almost impossible to beat him. So great job from Seville, has to be said, and you know, just unfortunate he couldn't quite bring it home to a bit closer to Robbie in that second half of the race. Robbie sort of showed, you know, his consistency again. You know, just talking about that, he showed the consistency that he's got the consistency he needs to bring home those results.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, we have managed to drag our top three into the commentary box to have a little chat with them, just to see how things went this evening. Robbie, P1, we'll start with you, of course. I was just saying, you might have heard it just me dragging you in there. Steve and I were talking about it. It wasn't all going your way in that first sort of 35 minutes or so. Were you a little bit hot under the collar at that point when you were getting that pressure from Johnny at the start?
I just got a really good start. I think I put a bit too much fuel in. I was going to go to like half an hour left, but then I saw John pitted like 45 minutes left, and I saw that Rich and Yannick in front were pretty much doing the same pace on new tyres, if not quicker. So I thought, well, might as well pit. I've got the flexibility too, so I pitted, and then less fuel, new tyres just felt so much better than more fuel, and yeah, then just got a gap in the pit lane. And then yeah, I think John came together coming into the hairpin with someone, and yeah, I just pulled the gap and maintained it.
Exactly, and you've obviously mentioned to us at Paul Ricard a couple of weeks ago, should we say you're fond of the Misano circuit. That certainly showed in qualifying, and one thing I've noticed, you never seem to put a practice time in before qualifying starts. Is that something that's intentional? Do you do practicing elsewhere, or do you just like to keep the guys guessing as to what sort of pace you've got coming into these qualifying sessions?
Keep them guessing.
It's a bit of sandbagging, is it?
Yeah, I've been absolutely knackered with World Cup 24 hours of Nürburgring, so I just ain't had the time to put any laps in. So.
Well, it certainly didn't do you any disservice. One race we're going to in a couple of weeks' time, of course, it's I take it to Martinique track for most people on the ACC calendar. Of course, we're off to Snetterton. Is it a Misano track for you? Are you quite fond of that one, or are you expecting it's going to be quite a tough race out there for 90 minutes around such a small and compact circuit?
I've never driven it, so have no idea what the track's like, have no idea how the macca is around there, so we'll come to the week before, I'll do some testing, and we'll see how it goes.
That's exactly what everyone else on the grid wants to hear, I think, that you've never driven around it in your life. I guarantee you 95% of the grid now are going to be jumping on that practice server right now and getting straight onto Snetterton to see what sort of lap times they can do. Fantastic stuff. Well, Robbie, look, congratulations again. It's another perfect race for you, pole position, fastest lap, and the race win. It's something we're becoming quite accustomed to in this GT3 season, but congratulations again. Another perfect race from yourself. In fact, one more thing I'm going to mention, I did actually have a look at this. Of course, those of you who aren't already aware, the races in Simsport Racing International are hosted on Sim Racing GP, and they do have quite an interesting level of stats that you can get per driver. Now, Robbie, I looked at yours before this race. You've had a 59% win ratio in the 17 races you've done. That's 10 wins out of the 17. And this was the bit that really got me. It's not updated since this race, because obviously it's still technically ongoing. You've only had 2 incidents in 600 race laps. How on earth have you managed that?
With no idea. I'm normally at the front in so.
Let's not forget to mention they're just off tracks as well. That's literally all you've managed. So if you can carry on doing that for the rest of the season, I'll be very impressed. I'm going to come back to this in 3 races time and see how that's changed. But yeah, congratulations again, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for your first tour of Snetterton by the sounds of it.
Cheers, David. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. We'll move over to P2, and someone who was battling quite fiercely for P1 at the start of the race. Jonathan, good result from you, obviously much better than you had at Paul Ricard last week. Was the car feeling a bit more compliant this time round at Misano?
Yeah and no. Yeah, the pace is there. Yeah, I was challenging Robbie a lot. Well, yeah, the pace was a lot better than it has been in the previous 2 races over the course of the stint. But I still feel like I'm just losing the rear tyres towards the end of the stint. It doesn't matter where I go. I can't seem to make the tyres last on this Ferrari. I wish I was still in Aston from last season. Because yeah, in the I don't know if you caught it, but I had a spin. I think Robbie mentioned it. I had a spin in the second stint, and that's where I lost all my time to him. I think I was managing about 5 seconds to him, and then I had a spin, and then after that, I don't know. I guess I just killed the rear tyres again.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was between Chris and I when we were commentating at the time. We did see it on the timing charts, but all I saw was you pointing the wrong way coming out of the chicane at the back end of the lap. So I was wondering whether it was a case of you've either hit I say you've hit someone. You've come together with someone, whether it was your fault or not. But yeah, it was a spin, was it? You confirmed that, yeah?
Yeah, just a lapse of concentration. Like with Robbie, I've been doing the SimGrid World Cup. I think I'm knackered. Because I did most of the night shifts for that, so I've not had much sleep really. So yeah, I can blame that, can't I?
I think I think that's probably one of the best excuses you could possibly go for, doing a 24-hour race and then coming into this. I mean, fair enough to you for actually managing to put in another hour and a half. I think you're probably just glad it wasn't the Nürburgring, I imagine.
I'd be pretty fed up by that by the end of the day if it was that track again.
And same question as said to Robbie for yourself. Snetterton, is that a track that you've spent much time on? Again, I know it's a track that doesn't really... It splits opinion. Is it one that you're quite fond of?
No, I hate it. No, really don't like it. Try and avoid it as much as I can, to be honest.
So plenty of time trying to finalise the setup and try to make it as stable as possible, to make it as... What's the word? Not enjoyable as... I can't think what the word is, but try and make it as less painless as possible, by the sounds of it. Brilliant. Well, look, Johnny, I'm going to let you get some sleep because it sounds like you've probably had a very busy weekend. But congratulations again. Like I say, much better performance this weekend. I'm sure you'll be happy with the P2 as well. But congratulations on the podium position, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for Snetterton.
Cheers, thank you.
And then last but not least, someone who... I didn't really see much of him at all, to be honest. Regan Mitchell, congratulations, Regan, on the P3. Fantastic racing yourself as always, and you've become a little bit of something I come to expect from yourself. You always tend to keep yourself out of trouble, but always get a good result. What was it like from your perspective this evening?
For me it was stressful. I think it just felt like I was driving on ice, and I suppose that's the same for everyone because I was behind Dean for most of the race, and he looked the same. He was sideways more than forward a lot of the time, and that's the only reason I got third in the end, because of just slippy cars.
As long as you kept yours pointing in the right direction, that's the main thing, isn't it, at the end of the day? And look, I said this to Steve towards the end of the race as well. Yourself and Kieran, obviously P4, P3, and P6. It's looking pretty good for the Constructors' Championship. Of course, you've got the Pole Simsport guys. Of course, we spoke with Johnny a moment ago. He's looking pretty strong in his side of the team as well. But you guys have got a pretty good chance there because Robbie's almost... the majority of the points have come from him. So you guys pretty confident you can make some pretty big movements up that side of things?
Yeah, we're hoping so. We're both just trying to stay towards the top end and get as many points as possible. Yeah.
Fantastic. And again, final question from myself. Snetterton in a couple of weeks. I know I wouldn't say you're a fan of the lesser spotted machines most of the time, but you certainly seem to go for the edgy choice every now and again. I know you're a fan of the Maserati, especially in the GT4 series. Is that the same as Snetterton? Are you one of those ones that likes the lesser light circuits across the calendar? Are you looking forward to it?
Not in this case. I think most of the drivers won't be having fun in 2 weeks' time. It'll probably look good on the outside, but I've raced a few times at Snetterton. I've only had one fun one. I'm hoping it's not a once in a lifetime thing, and I'm hoping I can get third.
I think I know. Yeah, I think I know the race you're on about, and I think you took the win at that one, if I remember correctly. So I'm assuming that's the right one.
No, I'm talking about Cayman Cup.
I thought you took the win there. My mistake.
No,
that was the one I was thinking of. Apologies, I've probably made that feel a bit worse now, haven't I?
Right now I seem to be like cursed to always come third. Every race I do. I don't know how to escape it.
Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks you can break that curse, but hopefully it'll be in the form of a P2 or even a P1 in a couple of weeks' time. Again, congratulations, Regan. It's nice to see you on the podium once more, and good luck for the next race in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it then, folks. Fantastic to hear from our podium sitters in that race. Like I say, fantastic work from Robbie, Jonathan and Regan to round out the top three. It was a race, Steve, that had battles all the way up and down the field, wasn't it? It was one of those classics, and it just pays testament to how much the competitive nature shines across this grid in this season, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the competitive nature, like you say, across the grid from first to however many cars started this evening. Was it 34, something like that? Everybody battles for every position, but they don't just sort of lick the stamp and send it. There's a little bit of contact here and there, but generally the racing is very, very respectful, very clean, and they're trying their hardest to put on a good show for everyone watching and enjoy the racing with each other. And I think we've seen a really good example of that this evening. It's been a pleasure to broadcast it, and certainly the tail end there to commentate on it. I think we've had some fantastic racing tonight.
Absolutely. So we'll say goodbye to the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli for this season. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll head over to Snetterton, of course, for round 4. As you see this beautiful graphic which shows us just the travelling these guys are going through. Of course, they don't need to do the travelling, fortunately for them, so they'll be all right. But we're heading to Snetterton, like I say, in a couple of weeks' time. Donington 2 weeks after that, and then we'll finish off the season at Suzuka in 6 weeks' time. Will Robbie Stapleford take a clean sweep in the second half of the season as well? That is the question that I think a lot of people are going to be asking, probably themselves and him, over the next couple of weeks. Of course, we've heard from the horse's mouth that he's not ever driven a lap round since. What could be an interesting race indeed. We'll have to wait and see. But in a couple of weeks' time, that'll be where we'll head to. In the meantime, next Sunday is the return of the VTCC, the Virtual Touring Car Championship. It's heading over to the Norris Ring for next week in that one, round number 3, and it's going to be all of both the Pro and the Pro-Am lobbies on the one stream. So there's going to be plenty of races, 6 20-minute races in total. I'm going to be outside the commentary box for that one. I'll let Chris deputise in my absence because I'm going to be getting behind the wheel and trying to very aggressively drive a front-wheel drive car with so much understeer, it's unbelievable, around a track with a lot of straights. It's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, that's going to be it for this evening's race. I'd like to very much thank Steve proudly. Thank you very much for dropping into the comment box towards the end there, and of course bringing us some fantastic camera angles as we come to expect from your fine self. I'd like to thank Chris Buxton, who unfortunately had to leave us towards the end there. Fantastic work from him as always, and myself, David Wressell, as part of your commentary team. We will see you in a couple of weeks for Snetterton. Of course, in the meantime, you want to stop by next Sunday for the VTCC. But between now and then, fantastic rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.